Hey, welcome to another episode of Feedback and Friends on ILBC TV. I have a couple announcements and stuff before we get started tonight because things are getting exciting here. So first off, if this is your first time watching Feedback and Friends or going, hey, what the hell is ILBC? Well, we started out with this idea to have a live electronic performance competition, and it sort of just has evolved since then into a really content-driven channel that is free, that's for the community, that brings in as many friends as we can, hence the Feedback and Friends. And now that COVID is sort of going in and out, but people are going out again, we are actually going to start having real live events that we stream as well, which is super, super exciting. So I just want to share the trailer for you really quick for our first live show. It's going to be in Valencia, which is where I'm located, Valencia, Spain, in case anyone doesn't know. And we're going to be doing it in collaboration with Curiosabot, which is a really, really cool maker lab. They have 3D printers, laser cutters, recording studios, hydroponic gardens, and they have the ability to do some really cool mixed reality live streams. So this is our party. It's got a few different artists going on, and they're all going to be doing live electronic sets. And we're going to be doing this probably at least once a month over the summer. We already have plans in the works to do a show in the UK, to do one in Barcelona, to do one possibly in Denver and in New York. So we are truly going to go international. So check it out. If you just so happen to be in Spain on April 16th, you are going to want to come and hang out with us. My gosh, I just got this new mute thing and already I'm muted. Blah, 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 blah. So let me start again. we have a whole bunch of these shows coming up, and you can start a petition for anywhere that you want to have a show. Honestly, the deal is that we are hosting a live electronic competition. And so if you are a live electronic performer, you can actually come and compete in this. And even if you're not in the area, we can actually do virtually and real life as well. So we made a lot of little tweaks to the stream tonight. I'm still getting used to it. I've got some fun new effects and essentially going to try and make this a little bit more visual, because I know sometimes we just turn into talking heads. So I've been working on getting more graphics and things like that. But yeah, so we're going to be having live shows. We are having another episode of Print My Live where we work on live setups with Monar coming up. And we also have, so this is really cool, a friend of mine has made an EEG, basically brainwave to MIDI device, and he makes music with that, and he's going to be doing a stream for us pretty soon too. All right, so since I'm a talking head, I'm going to bring in all my friends here. We have Nathaniel Wyvern, the wonderful.
Hello, way.
And we have Evelyn, the lovely, returning again. We always love having her. She's one of our favorites. And so we are going to get to it. Oh, one last thing that I need to mention that is new. We do now have a tip jar. Okay, this is something I'd never had. I always do everything for free. This is always going to be free. We are not going to pay well. We're not going to charge for things, but we would like to keep it free. And it definitely has some operational costs. So you can go to streamlabs.com/LBC_TV. We have fun little leaderboards for followers and all-time donators. I don't really know if this one is working because I know somebody just followed me and it's not coming up. So be patient. I will get all this working soon. And we also have some some psychedelic Volta visuals. So just to keep things a little interesting, I'm gonna try and do visuals like when I have a moment, and they're gonna be audio synced. So if you haven't checked out Volta, we really love them. It's a free mixed reality program, and it allows you to make visuals that are synced to audio. So I'm going to be playing with that a little bit in the background, but we're going to start off right away now with our first cue, which would be Rogue. All right, so Rogue says, and this is also my first time using a Google form. So, artist name is Reborn. Discord username is Rogue. So the track is called Close Our Eyes Whip, and I have a new field that says any specific feedback that you're looking for or things you want to share. So this is nice because people definitely have things they want to say sometimes and they don't get in the chat and everything. So this basically the feedback says this is an early whip. I'm interested in the mix, structure, and melody of the drop. Does it make sense? Does it work? Okay, so we are going to check that out now. It's called Reborn Sound. Oh, that was a little bit of an abrupt ending. I guess that's how a whip works. I really liked it. I liked the drop. I liked Evelyn.
That's not me.
That's not
me.
you? Where is that coming from?
Was that SoundCloud link?
Oh, it's SoundCloud. All right, SoundCloud. SoundCloud getting
That
over.
was not me.
That was not me. All right. So I'm going to let Nathaniel go first while I fix all I'm doing a lot of new things, so thanks for being patient while I tweak them. But yeah, go ahead, Natty.
So, I mean, for me, I think that the place with what you've got so far, there's two places to focus on. The first would be your drop. Right now, you've got the right sound palette, but I think you need to drive it harder. Like, it's like it really wants to punch me in the face with energy, but you're not quite gotten there yet. I'd experiment with how you saturate your layers to the point where you can make them a little bit crunchy and give that the bite that it requires. The other thing would be your vocals. Rag suggested that some of it might be a little bit out of time, and I think I agree. Right now it sounds very on beat in kind of the stiff manner, so maybe just shift things back and forth a little bit to sort of help keep the flow of the track going with the vocals. But the other thing is they're very thin sounding. So, I mean, it's a case of parallel processing them mostly, I think, because creating maybe a sub-layer with some... You're already playing about where you're pitch shifting on them, so that's kind of cool. So, I mean, maybe just expand that a bit further to give the vocals a bit of depth. Otherwise, your main problem here will be to work out how you finish it. I mean, obviously, right now you just have a dead stop, and I know that wouldn't be how you do it in the final version. You have a choice to basically break down and sort of lower the energy levels in a sort of similar way to how you started the song, or you can use it as an opportunity to effectively flip the expectation and take the track off in a completely new direction. So I mean, especially with this sort of loose, complextro kind of stuff, that can work really well to sort of drive the hype even higher. And it means that when you come in your second drop, you can basically use that new tone and then reintroduce elements from the original drop back in as you progress that towards the conclusion to sort of tie it all together like a nice little bow. So I mean, I think it'd be a really fun track when it's finished. It was a good vibe.
Evie?
Yeah, I agree. That was a pretty fun track. Sound palette is pretty good of its own. My main criticism would be that you really need to turn up your vocals a bit more, because they were getting a little bit lost in the mix, especially with how loud the chords were. Chords? Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. And I do feel like the mix could be a little more weighty, have a little bit more of that bottom end to it. That would have been nice.
You know what I just realized with this new Google form is that there's no way for me to, I guess I can close the form, but people are saying that they can't see the queue. So I'm going to work on that. Like I said, I just basically tried 20 new things at once tonight. So I'm a little bit like a chicken head cut off sort of syndrome. But right now you all made it into the queue. So like we're good. I don't have much more to say because I really like the vibe. I think if it's still an early whip, obviously you have to develop it a little. And somebody in the chat said that things sound a little bit off. I think they were a little slumpy, but I kind of liked that. I liked that it wasn't just giving me such like a sterile kind of vibe, you know, that sometimes like house techno 4 on the floor stuff, there's not enough groove to it. And so I think personally for me, it was a really nice groove. So yeah. All right. We are going to move to Take 77. And so this song, they said they tried taking a bit of a minimalist approach, and it is a little bit of a first doing this type of housey music. Okay. And the song is called Lose the Beat. So for me, this is already like, this was getting a lot of people in the chat grooving. Like it's really like it fits together. The pocket is really, really nice in it. Yeah, like people are saying they love the group. Bass is hitting nice. the perfect minimal track. We play a little game on this show. Obviously, we do not endorse alcohol consumption because we would never do that. But if you happen to enjoy drinking games, we tend to say a couple things a lot, and one of them is ear candy. So I'm gonna just lead right in with that and say that, like, for me, that's the only thing that kind of that this track needs to move forward. Like, it's got all the elements. I wouldn't add any more focus. I really like these chords and everything. All I would do is add the little ear candy, add a few little textures, noises, little turnarounds. What do you think, Natty? More ear candy?
Yeah, I mean, it can be really subtle stuff as well. I mean, one of the things with a very deep house-derived track like this, I'd like to hear that bass have more oomph to it. But I mean, I do like the general midiness to it that it has right now. Like, it's very mid-rangey. But one of the ways to add that ear candy would be to have points where you intensify the lower end regions of it and give it that boom, boom, boom sort of right in our heads, and or if Isha had her sub pack on, it'd be right in her chest. And you know, that's one of the things that can help people establish the groove on the dance floor when they really feel the bass. So, and obviously if you vary it up, you control your energy levels. So I mean, that means that you can allow people a moment to breathe, calm down, and then get them back into the groove again, and then they're back dancing and it's all fun. And so that's one of the areas I think I'd focus on, is your bass sound design specifically. You can add that dynamic and variety entirely in that region.
We got rags starting already. I'd love to hear Nathaniel say, "That beat hit my chest like a bronco."
Okay. That beat hit my chest like a bronco.
Ooh. Speaking of bronco beats, Evelyn, were you feeling it?
Yeah, that was pretty nice. It was very groovy. I like it's definitely one of those tracks, like, you walk into the club, you hear this, you get ready to start dancing, start warming up. It's like perfect for that. It's nice minimal vibe. I kind of like it. A couple of nitpicks would be the acid bass that comes in here and now feels maybe a little bit too offbeat, because it comes in way later than when the drums hit, like boom, boom, like kind of like that. But it's I think if you were to shorten that distance between the drums and that acid bass just a little bit, I think it would fit in more with the overall vibe you've got going on. And I think this mix down was kind of lacking punch too, because like Nathaniel said, you kind of just want this to be a little bit in your face, but now it feels like it's a little bit distant maybe, because it's not having that punch like on the 150 hertz that I would like it to have. And I can't help but feel like you have this nice quantized track going on. It feels a little bit MIDI-like, it feels little bit mid-rangey like the other said. And I was just listening to this and I heard those hi-hats and I was like, I wish those hi-hats would provide a sort of counterbalance to how quantized this song feels. Like, you could really get grooving with those hi-hats and blow it into a whole new vibe that way.
Yeah, good point. Natty, oh, sorry.
Bases.
You were typing, so I muted you.
Sorry. You're very close to a garage sort of pace with those hats in places, but you never really leaned fully into it. So it might be worth exploring that.
Yeah. No, that would be a good idea. Kind of that garagey. I like it when you say garage. So wonderful. Yeah, I would go in that direction too, but I mean, I think it's got a lot of potential. Just keep doing it and just polish it off. Okay, next up we got Prod by Salsa. Ooh, sassy. And this track, let's see what they said. This is called Level Up. First attempt, a lot of people's first genre attempts, which is really cool. It's like you've been producing for a while and you're ready to learn something a little different. So it says, I'm a hip hop producer, but I want to get into other genres. Any feedback? This is just my first attempt at producing EDM/future bass. All right, let's check it out.
Let's go.
Sosa.
All right.
Oh.
Another very some of these whips catch me off guard. I'm like, oh, it was just getting somewhere. So yeah, I mean, as somebody who also makes hip hop and R&B and all kinds of stuff, I can hear. I think everybody could hear, all the hip hop influence in that, super trappy, and obviously, yeah, this would be a great thing for a rapper to be in. But the thing is I think when you get so used to producing for rappers, it becomes a little bit empty if you don't. If it depends, if you're gonna have a rapper on this, right, then obviously leave it and have them go record, and you seem to know what you're doing there. But if you want to keep your own style but convert it, like you're saying, learn a little bit of a different genre, you have to find something to replace what that rap was doing, which is being the lead, right? The reason that rap sounds good against beats like this with space is that it provides this lead kind of cadence and rhythm. And when you're producing EDM and electronic music, a lot of the time, if you want it in the foreground, you'll do it with a lead synth, for example. And if you want it more in the background, you can do it with percussion, you can do it with Foley. You just basically need to have some counter rhythms and almost like some ghost notes and things to sort of give you that like cadence contrast, so to speak. So if I were you, I mean, I think you have a really good start. You have some really good meat in your track. I would just do a little like something in the lead, because maybe on the top of those chords you could have like a high sine sort of synth note that kind of goes off of it. So like when a guy goes bow 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 with the chords, like the lead could be like bow now. We always beatbox on the show. That's another easy thing. But you could have a contrasting higher synth that plays off of those chords to give you that thing. And Mythic Music, basically, I wasn't even reading the chat, but they said exactly what I was thinking, which is a stronger lead melody would help during the drop, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna let Evelyn go next. Go for it.
Yeah, it was a very nice track. I can totally see what you're doing with the concept of it. I think the core idea is actually pretty good. Definitely the hip hop production really shines through in that the kick and the hi-hats are maybe a little too strongly present for this sort of track. I would turn them down a little bit, or just turn up the rest a little bit if you want to go for that a big loudness, of course, just as long as you can manage the distortion. And if leads are maybe not your kind of thing, you could go with layering your chords with other similar layers to provide a sort of wall of sound, because that is also a very popular approach. You can kind of do future bass two ways. You can just go with a wall of sound, which is just there and provides no space for a lead, or you can just keep what you have, your current kind of setup, introduce a sort of just introduce a lead like Alicia suggested. And maybe one last mixdown comment would be, maybe your chords felt just a little bit sharp around 5 kilohertz. Would consider checking out that area a little bit.
Smart. Nati?
Oh no, I'm gonna beatbox now. So I mean,
Nice.
I'm thinking about how you might approach that potential call and response with your chords, because I mean, you could play it so that the chords form the first call. So it's like do 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 do, and then what you can do is there's something, I think it's like a stack of Reese sounds, where I mean some hybrid trap sort of songs where it's a really sort of a sharp thing, and you can have them do like an ARP, so it's like kind of thing as your response, so you can go really heavy on it. And I think that would allow you to leverage your hip hop experience more, because then you can start bringing things like 808 bass drums in as part of that massive response layer. So it's like really sort of looser and ambient, and then heavy. So I mean, like, one thing I do like these sort of tracks for building on. I mean, when you're starting a track like this, because you can do almost anything with this sort of structure. I mean, you can play it really straight and go play more into the traditional hip hop where everything's sort of broken up with fills and it's just about that groove and the flow, or you can use a contrasty sort of more drop heavy EDM energetic kind of thing, or you can just have more distinct sections between the tracks, like the elements. So you can have your verse, chorusy, droppy bit, and then you have a breakdown that's sort of a different vibe again, and you can keep moving that way. Delayed ARPs, that would definitely be a good way from J4 Coupe there. There's also saturation and some crunch on the pads and chords. Interesting way of developing that would be then automating that saturation, so you can have it so it's not just a constant crunch. It's like you can have it ramp up or down or whatever you feel like. The other thing I think would be sidechain. I mean, you can have some elements get really, really pumpy with this sort of music, and you totally get away with it, especially if you don't plan on having vocals on top of it.
Yeah, good plan. It's Always Frisky is asking, what is crunch? Well, I think a lot of the time when people say crunch, they usually mean distortion as far as I can see. I mean, the only other context I would see is maybe like squishing compression and being aggressive with it, but usually that will also add some kind of distortion when you do that. What do you think of when people say crunch?
I think more of a kind of texture, and I think of the presence of a lot of harmonics. And what you usually see, what I experienced as crunch when it comes to frequencies, when a lot of 5 to 6 kilohertz and also 3 kilohertz just kind of added to that feeling of crunch.
Yep, people are saying guitar amps, pedal tube, redux, low saws and squares are very crunchy. Good point. Sometimes just the waveform that you're using will change things. So all really cool things. I really love the discussions that people start having in the chat here. So this is all good stuff because we're about to listen to someone's first track ever. So we have a lot of first track ever premieres on this show. So I'm very excited. This artist is called Big Lou, and again, my very first track. Don't worry, we'll be gentle. All right, it's about to drop. It's about to get real loud. Look at that sausage coming in. All right, so, I mean, for a first track, wow. Congratulations. I mean, when the beat and the sub came in, like that part sounds really professional and clear, you know? I was really pleasantly surprised the way it came in. Like for the first like 4 bars or whatever, 8 bars, whatever the intro, I honestly would have just been like hearing that at a festival, right? And then once your lead came in, that's when I think as a lot of people have said in the chat already, it became a little unbalanced, and that's where that sort of gives it away. But seriously, as Rags is saying, y'all's first track is light years ahead of when I started. My first tracks sounded like theme music for people who grip pencils with their fists. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, like, congratulations. And they said, this artist also said they are going for an old school trance vibe, old Cosmic Gate Tiesto. So I would just say, you know, work on making your main synths a little bit more interesting. But I mean, this is like, it's your first track. I feel like my feedback for you, I don't even want to get into the nitty gritty because I just want to tell you to just make 5 more tracks. Like every time you make a track, you'll start to learn a little bit more. But if you don't already know about automation, I guess that's the next thing I would start playing with, because that will allow you to put effects on your synth and to move them so that it's not so repetitive. And then you know, as your track goes on, maybe you have a filter, maybe you have a reverb that comes in and out, and automation is just going to give you that kind of movement. Evelyn.
Yeah, that was hands down very good for a first track. Like, congratulations, little applause.
Yay!
Woo! Amazing.
That was like light years ahead of what I first made. That is for sure. This is actually danceable. It has structure. It has a core idea which is cohesive. That's very nice.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, well done. There's a couple of things, yeah, I want to mention. Alicia already said you want to look into automation, because when the track first started and that lead was immediately there and in your face, you want to build up a little bit towards your bigger sounds. Like, you can start off your track with a bit of a boom maybe, then you have to just slowly, gently let everything just gradually set in. Like something like a low pass filter which just gradually introduces more of the frequencies as the track goes on is a very good way of building tension and energy. And I would say try adding some pads in this too, maybe some stuff with a nice bit of reverb to counteract the kind of dryness you've got going on, because it would make a good complete picture. I think I actually kind of like this sort of trance, and I think you are very much on the right track.
Yeah, Natty, do you have anything else to add?
Yep. For me, I mean, obviously, when you're starting out, I mean, it's very, very easy to get overwhelmed. So obviously, I don't want to sit and say, do this, do that. I mean, just compile a huge to-do list for you, because it's not helpful. For me, I think that the next place you should focus on if you want to continue developing new tracks is spending time just experimenting with ARP patterns. Because right now you've got sort of in this track, you have a couple that sort of work, but then they don't really evolve, which is fine, you know, it's first track, not going to judge too hard on that. But what it gives you is an opportunity here where, especially, say you're going to make another 10 tracks in a sort of early 90s trancey techno sort of style. You have a chance to sit there and just see what different patterns sound like, see what happens if you stack one ARP against another ARP, or if you stick a delay and let it carry through. You know, this is the fun bit where you don't, you know, you may not have all the rules centered, but that means you can sort of come at from an open perspective and say, well, okay, what sounds good? And then you can work out why it sounds good. You know, like that bit can come afterwards. It's totally okay just to throw stuff at the wall and say, okay, this sounds rubbish, yeah, and try something else. You know, have fun with your art patterns effectively with this sort of music. That's what's going to give you a lot of your spice beyond all the sound design stuff, because you have the general structure right. It's just needs that bit of spark which you'll get by just seeing what you really, really like. But you need to try all your options effectively, is the idea.
Totally true. By the way, I just want to give shouts out to Rags and to Zavi, who both just donated. For those of you who have been tuning in for a while, we have just added a donation jar. And what are you donating to? Basically, short answer is for us to keep everything free for you, because we are going to keep giving you free workshops, free concerts. Like, we're going to be doing some live streaming events, all kinds of music, all kinds of live electronic performance, and a competition. And we're basically just building up. We don't ever want to charge you for this stuff. So if you ever want to throw us a tip, it helps keep things going, and we appreciate it. So Rags is up next, and this track it's got an audio visualizer, which is nice. It's called Remembering to Forget.
If now tomorrow's a threat, in time you will forget. Somewhere in of yourself, someday you will forget. If time held grudges, I still argue with mine, or at least hold animosity every time I'm reminded how I long for the past, but the present plays second fiddle. Melancholy memories still smile at it all a little. Like how me in time since second grade, and how we saw the world as a platter for one day. Or what about that I hold to the end of days, but life never saw it fit, we just had to go separate ways. 1,000 miles from home and not by the walking rain. Lincoln Park now I'm playing, just help me to master pain. But everything I wanted to vein, you was straight lied. And they went to the after party, cheap smoking, I'm outside. Thinking about my regrets or reactions that made me laugh. Seeking reanimation of things that I used to grasp. Like happiness, a purpose, a reason to chase dreams. Only see it with closed eyes or a drain with cold strength. Sometimes it's not worth believing that things I love would be different. I made a personal mission to find if it's really true. It pains me to let it go, but I'm losing touch with the presence. I let it go in a second if it helped me get a leg up. I'm just tired of thinking, I'm thinking I need a break from this carousel of memories, remembering my mistakes. If I could rectify it, I'm trying to make sense of trying to keep patience, remembering to forget. If now tomorrow's a threat, in time you will forget. Somewhere in of yourself, someday you will forget.
Oh, the vibe of that is so nice. I really, really enjoy all the different variety of music. Those of you who don't know Rags is definitely a frequent contributor to the channel and makes all kinds of music. I always really enjoy hearing. For me, like, I love the whole vibe. There was a little bit of sharpness, and the nice thing about having friends to feedback is it's not just one person's opinion. Like, we all have our own opinions, our own ears, and our own headphones. And so I have the Sennheiser HD 800Ss. They're really nice. I love them. They are a little high-end sensitive. So the thing is if it sounds sharp in mine, it's like really painful. So I think it might be a little bit sharp, not a lot, but of course it comes through to me even more exaggerated. So normally I actually use SonarWorks and I calibrate it, but it's too complicated to port all the loopback audio and stuff when I'm streaming. So I just sort of take it as, okay, if something is sensitive in that, it's probably a little too much. And I think maybe possibly the hi-hats, and this is a pattern I think that I've heard from you before, and I suspect that is just your particular headphones or listening environment, because I think a few times I've heard this sort of like high-end wispy, just a little bit of over amount of frequency. So I don't know, do you know what I'm talking about, Evelyn?
Yeah, I actually kind of agree there. It sounded a little high-endy. I think it would sound considerably better if you had something in the low end kind of counteracting it, creating a sort of pleasant smiley curve. But maybe indeed just look at the treble over the hi-hats a bit. But on a compositional level, on a lyrical level, I really, really like that. The vibe was immaculate, absolutely great. The lyrics were definitely food for the soul, to say so, and absolutely great beats, great rapping. Was that even rapping? I don't know. They were just great vocals. Let's keep it at that. Love it. Very nice.
Nice. Nati?
So I mean, I have a couple of thoughts. I mean, one of the things is I think the vocals need to be pulled up a little bit more. I was sitting there trying to listen to the lyricism because you've got a lot of really nice poetic word usage here. But I mean, because it's ever so slightly under the beat, it was actually a little bit difficult to comprehend every word. There's also a couple of places where I might recommend just looking over what you're saying, just tweaking it ever so slightly. One stood out to me was remembering to forget, which in itself is a nice thing, but I think you should just keep it as make it a little bit simpler. Just remember to forget. So I need to remember to forget, because I noticed that when you had that remembering, it was actually you could tell you were kind of struggling to squeeze it into the bar just ever so slightly. So just trimming the ing off, I think, would nail that just there. I think that I agree with the high-end comments as well. I mean, these headphones are fairly consumer-grade ones, but they too also emphasize, especially amongst the sort of sibilant range. So I think you do need to tweak your processing ever so slightly to make your de-esser just work a little bit harder, because I was noticing that a fair bit as well, which was helping reduce my ability to comprehend everything that you were saying. But I mean, like, when I was, once I focused, I was able to hear it, and it was really, really moody and nice, and I really liked the vibe going on. I mean, native speaker pro tip.
Native speaker. Everybody loves you, Nathaniel. Again, you got to have manual reading. I will tune in for that. So, speaking of nice voices, I have a lot of different voices. If I'm really thinking about it, I think it's nice. And then there are times where I just caw. So next up we have Santiago. I'm really excited about this because Santiago has been a regular. Super shouts out for that. Also shouts out to Nick Beeman. I just noticed that Nick threw us a tip. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. It's been a labor of love to develop this. I've got some cool stuff coming. I just got a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K so that I can stream concerts. Caca, everyone.
One more thing as well. One more shout out before we go on.
Please.
Admiral Bumblebee has been in chat, giving some wonderful tips for integrating SonarWorks into your OBS stream. So I mean, that'll be good for the future. And thank you, B. We appreciate you.
Yeah, the routing on my computer internally probably looks like spaghetti in binary code. Like, it's just crazy because I'm using browsers to pull them in. So I have to use a different browser to send them the audio that I'm sending to you. And then I have to use 2 different loopback drivers. And so this is... It's always like a crazy tech. Oh, there goes Evelyn's Womps. Oh, by the way, Evelyn is going to be our special guest presenting the plugin of the week, and she's going to show us some wicked stuff. I cannot wait. But anyways, Santiago. Let me use my nice voice because Santiago left us a beautiful paragraph. This tune makes me want to go outside at 5 a.m. to see the city wake up. I have a very special relationship with this track, as I made it a while ago in a 24-hour production challenge, in which it unfortunately didn't end up making the final track list. So I kind of disliked listening to it because I considered it a failure. But last autumn, I went back to it because I thought it would be a good fit for another project I'm releasing soon. You've heard 2 of the tracks on the stream already, and I was amazed by how well I did for my skill level 2 years ago, and considering I did this in 1 day only. Please don't be too harsh on the sub-bass transient. I don't know what I was thinking. It's fixed in the final version, I promise. All right, this is called Air. Oh man, Santiago coming in hot with the vibes. So many vibes, my friend. Wow, you're so good with atmospheres. You know, it's really cool. We're starting to just kind of get to know people who come on here regularly, and that's something I always notice is, you know, with some people I say you need more ear candy, you need more atmosphere. You always transport me directly into this magical world, and I want to stay there. And please, and when you're done mixing, can I have some? I'm going to shamelessly ask people for their drum and bass and halftime and stuff and dubs tonight, because I just got booked to play in Bratislava on May 20th for B Complex's birthday party. So I actually have to start crate digging, and I know Bratislava, I'm gonna need some drum and bass and some halftime, and this is like exactly my style. So love it. I just agree with Admiral Bumblebee that the drums are a bit loud, and I think because they're loud, they're getting a little bit over compressed, which means a lot of the time that the top end gets very present. So it's giving me a little bit of pain point in there, but I really love it. I love this track. I don't really have much to say about it other than just adjusting the drum level. I think you have all the elements there. Evelyn, I know you love drum and bass too, so what do you think?
Yeah, but I thought this was a very tasteful track. I really enjoyed it. The drum composition was pretty spot on. I feel like it was done very well. The breaks were chopped up in a way was very nice, and I really enjoyed that. It did indeed transport me into another world, and I don't know what else to say than what has already been said. Definitely turn down your drums a little bit because they were quite peaky and in the high end, and pretty loud. Otherwise, absolutely great track. I loved it.
Natty?
And I have nothing really negative to say. I mean, I actually think you need to have some confidence in yourself, Santiago. You said that you were doubting this track and whether it was actually good. I mean, I think it was worth revisiting it and pushing it towards the completion point because it is a nice song. And, you know, like, sometimes it is easy to doubt yourself as an artist, but I mean, I think that you're at a point where you know, if you've got a vision for your songs, I don't think you need to worry about achieving it. You just need to go do it. You know, get the pain point out and just say, okay, fine, I need to get down into the nitty gritty, finish it properly because the idea is good. Because I mean, I think you're at that skill level now where most of your ideas likely are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, it's like, have confidence.
People are definitely too hard on themselves, and I think, I don't know, a lot of people are just a little bit too mean, and like being mean doesn't really do anything. Like, you're just gonna make the person feel bad. Like, you can be honest in a way, like you can talk about what you like. By the way, any tips for, you know, normal feedback is there's a technique called the shit sandwich. You may have heard of it, where basically, you say something nice, and then you say the criticism, and then you say something nice again. Because, I mean, it's very easy to get caught up in negative comments. But look, we're all in progress. We're all works in progress as human beings, right? And your music could always have more done to it. And what is that quote? It's like, great art is never finished, only abandoned, or something like that. So please don't be hard on yourself. Next up, we have Kafilo. Kafilo says, this is very much of a whip, but I'm really looking on everything. I'm kind of a beginner. So if you say something advanced, please explain, but I don't have my levels in mind while giving feedback. Oh, level of skill. Judge me as if I were a pro. All right, let's roast Kafilo. Just kidding.
You look at me. I know I never felt this before. You here with me. It's all I need. I got this love, love, love that I'm dreaming about. I got this love, 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 got me singing out loud. You come and take me higher. There's no denying you the one. I got this love, yeah. Oh, you take my feelings through the ceiling. I got this love. I got this love. Yeah. I got this love, love, love that I'm dreaming about. I got this love, 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 got me singing out loud. You come and take me higher. There's no denying you the one. I got this love, yeah. I got this love. I got this. Oh, you take my feelings through the ceiling. I got this love. I got this love. Yeah.
Well, again, I think this is like a case of being too hard on yourself because, wow, I mean, it sounds really overall polished. I think the sound choices you've made are good. And, you know, it's very commercial sounding, which is not a bad thing. Like it sounds radio friendly, and all the choices you've made are sound choices that fit really nicely together. And that's really pleasant to hear. Like even when I have this turned way down, I can sort of hear all the elements clearly. I think that main saw lead thing might be a tiny bit loud, but I love the guitar that you're using. I love the structure. I think it all sounds, you know, as Monmouth Music says, very Tomorrowland. Natty, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with your general sentiment there. I mean, for me, I think the focus here beyond, I mean, there's a little bit of a boominess to your bass I might look at, because, I mean, it does unbalance your mix a little bit. But, I mean, the other thing is your transition into your drops. I feel like the contrast isn't quite there yet in your arrangement. I mean, it could be a case of just giving yourself a little bit more breathing room to have a bit more of a sweep up into it. Or it could be a case of seeing about how you can minimize the timbre and sound palette of what comes before your drop, sort of to just give it that breathing room in that respect, so that then when we're hit by the drop, it's like...
Oh.
Sorry.
Wow.
But I mean, you know, like, I think that's where your focus should be right now, is just making those transitions as well defined as possible, because right now it's sort of just like your pre-drop happens and then your drop happens and then we continue. Like there's not a huge amount. It's too blurred for this sort of EDM-y commercial aesthetic, I think.
Interesting. What do you think, Ev?
It was very nice. Absolutely does what it needs to do. You're definitely way too hard on yourself, but don't be so hard on yourself, because this is actually really good. It sounds polished. It sounds well executed. The only feedback I have is pretty much just nitpicking, which is indeed, like Nathaniel said, work on smoothing your transitions a little bit. It would really add to the track, and I would like to hear maybe those vocals be a little less sharp. When those distorted vocals came in, they felt like the distortion was maybe a little bit overdone. It made this vocal sound a little bit grating. Perhaps look at that.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a sharpness. I feel like everything is sounding sharp to me tonight. I don't know why, but yeah, okay, I'm glad it's not just me. But
You'll have to low pass your ears.
just put the whole high cut on it. But yeah, no, again, don't be so hard on yourself, people. You're all doing really good work, so keep going. We have next up Volksend. Okay. So this says still a whip. Just want some general feedback. It has an early master on it. I know the outro is messy. It's the last thing I'm working on, trying to figure out the ending. And it's called The Magician. All right, so I gave that one a little bit extra time because I know that you're working on the ending. So I really, really appreciate kind of the rhythmic change-ups that you did, because just at the point where I was like, okay, this is turning into kind of repetitive future bass, you switched it up. And I really, really like these like trappy drums coming through in the end. I think it's a really beautiful, like, I think the thing I like the most about this track is that it has kind of future bass vibes, but at the same time, it's kind of mixed very like blurry and a little bit like lo-fi LA beat scene, which I think is a really interesting choice. A lot of people have said already the things I was going to say in the chat, like the kick in the last part is a little bit muddy. And I think overall, as like 20, 30 people have said already, the sidechain, right? The sidechain, I love super sidechainy sounds, but it may be that your ratio is a bit too extreme, because it's sort of like, it's one thing to rise up, but it is kind of like punching me in the face. So I think that, maybe playing with your sidechain source. This is a really great assortment of information, which is why I'm just reading some of it out. Like you can have maybe only really hard sidechains on certain parts, and then you can have like a second sidechain source that is lighter, that sidechains other things. So that will also give it like dynamic variation as well. If like not every single thing is being sidechained by this huge amount, just saving it for the essentials and playing around with that. Got any sidechaining tips, Evelyn?
You should definitely look into different methods of sidechaining, because it sounds like maybe your sidechain was a little bit too connected to the tail of your kick, the release of it, which made it perhaps a little too long. But I could be totally wrong there. That's just a stab in the dark. Isha was just saying, here's to give us some tips, Evelyn. So I just anyway, I loved that track. It was very nice hard wave. That's what this style sounds like to me. It reminded me very strongly of Astral. Very nice hard wave artists. If you don't listen to Astral yet, then absolutely look that hard wave artist up, because it's just like this. It's so similar. Absolutely gorgeous track, all around very well structured. The melodies were great, atmosphere was great, the mix down overall felt pretty good. But I do want to say it felt a bit boomy, like maybe a bit too much. Like whereas this track is quite elegant and full, that boominess kind of adds a bit of a sloppiness to it. Maybe that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. No. Yeah. What do you think, Natty?
It's funny how all three of us have a different association for this style of track. Because for me, it sounded a bit funk, which is often what people call driving music. But that actually brings home the point with what Evelyn was saying about the bass and how it was very boomy. This is a sort of time where you'd have the car test. And I think if you were to play this in that sort of environment, which is what I think a lot of the audience for a track like this would, you're going to be blowing their windows out with your bass. And that, I don't think they'd appreciate that as much. I mean, it's really, with those sort of environments, it's already amplifying a sub to that volume. So having your really heavy bass sound amplified even further would just be mad, and all they'd hear is bass and none of your really pretty arps and pads going on in the background, and that would be not very good for your audience. If you don't obviously have a car like myself, there are alternatives. I mean, you can deliberately crank up your headphones, play it back on your phone and use a custom EQ to sort of replicate that effect. Or if you've got a sound bar at home on your TV, shove it as close to a corner in your room as you can and see what it does. And if it's making your room shake, it's a bit too much.
If it's making your room shake, it's a bit too much. It sounds like what the grandma next door would say. Excuse me, it's just a bit too much. The walls are shaking, Nathaniel.
That sounds like just right to me, honestly.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is, if you're going to do a really heavy, stuttery, sidechainy sort of sound to your... one way to make it intentional is to start using that as your sort of trigger point before you have another layer in that cuts in afterwards, sort of thing, that's immune to that sidechain. You can create your contrast in that manner and keep your rhythmic four and floory sort ofness that you've got going on. It's a two-step, I guess, because it's sort of loosely future bassy. You can keep that rhythmic rigidity with a counter element that's not tied to your kick and its offbeatness. Because I think that right now what you do is your track progresses, and we've already got into this groove, and then you completely disrupt it. So you need something in the back there to sort of reinforce it again, so that they were not completely lost and unable to dance to it.
Rex is killing me. Oh my god.
I s-
Love you
I
all.
see this person is using volume shaper. I use that too, and I can give you a pretty good tip. Just shorten your side chain and don't give it like a gradual tail. Like no, make it a little bit more steep, like straight up or just even vertically going up after a bit of initial curve. Um, and then on your base have it be a little bit more gently sloped, and which really helps me get this punch and this strong side chain in my mixes, because my mixes duck to infinity, literally they do.
Duck to Infinity. That needs to be an EP. I love it. Let's keep moving. We got a track by Patrick Nepview called "That Little Dress." Doesn't have any particular. Oh, I asked for particular feedback. He just says groove and mix. All right.
Okay.
Little baby, coming back it up. On the floor where you belong. But down. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. Little baby. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. I can see it in your eyes that you want some more. On the floor, 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 on the floor. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. Little baby, coming back it up. On the floor where you belong. Up and down. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. Little baby. I can see it in your eyes that you want some more. On the floor. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. Little baby, coming back it up. On the floor where you belong. Up and down. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. Little baby. I wanna see you bring that little dress off. Dress off, dress off. Dress off, dress off. I wanna see you bring that little dress off.
All right, a little cheeky club track by Patrick Nepview. I like the groove. I think as far as groove, you've got it like spot on. It's head bopping, as some people said. And Monmouth Music says this has less aggressive Mala vibes. Yeah, I do really love this kind of weird sort of atonal style. I think it's super, super cool. I do think that there's a lot of like overall muddiness, like that sort of wompy bass panning thing. I would do a lot of notch EQing here. I would go in and just be like a little more surgical with pulling in the frequencies, because a lot of stuff seems to sort of blur together, and you can't quite get like that like pushing feeling as much because stuff is overlapping a little bit and frequencies are building up. So I'm gonna let Natty jump in. I'm sure he's got one of his monologues to go.
I'm building a reputation for it, aren't I? I mean, with this sort of tech housey sort of vibe, it's pretty hard to do really, really well, and I think you're super close to actually managing to pull it off. I agree with some of the comments about needing just a little bit more to break up the repetition. I think there are opportunities with your vocal sample where you can actually get really like it's already got some unusual processing on it. I think you should push that further. Have it so it comes up and down in pitch and with filters and stuff. So it's you can turn that into sort of a really bassy sound, which it would potentially help fill in some of the gap you have right now, because when you got your bass and it's really panned, and I think obviously what you're trying to do is make more space for your kick, but your kick isn't actually a very subby kick, so you actually still have space in the middle to use for your bass, and you don't currently do so. So I mean, you could obviously introduce some new layers into that, or introduce a parallel lane so that you have your same bass layer that's panned, you can have that in the middle too, and just balance the panned and the mono sort of version. Or you can use things like the vocals and bring them down in places. Give them a moment where it's just like the vocals over the kick and the hats, or whatever, to sort of spice it up a little bit. We're going back to the ear candy thing. Yeah, ear candy.
Spice it up. Evelyn, what do you think? ASMR stream.
That track was kind of like bringing my uncle, who's like very distant to the studio, and then that uncle turned out to be fucking banner at Beats, so that's kind of like, that's the vibe it gave me. And this track is maybe a bit repetitive, but fully fits within the style. It's very nice, very nice. I agree with Natty. You could probably take the vocal processing a little step further, get a little crazier with it, because I would have liked it to filter out, maybe pan around a little bit, do some crazy stuff, pitch around. That would have been very nice, very nice. And definitely agree with the other mixed down comments. It maybe felt a little bit muddy here and there, while in other places feeling like it was maybe not full enough. But overall, I really, really like the idea you've got going on, and you should definitely continue working on this.
Yeah, I think just a little bit of tweaking, and then like giving some crispness overall. And it's definitely, I think, more about sculpting away frequencies you don't want than it is adding more top end. So I think that's an important distinction, like don't I always say this to my students, is like, you should always take away first and then add. Too many times people say I need more treble, so they just add more treble elements instead of actually cutting the low mids, which would really help. So if you just tuned in, you're watching Feedback and Friends on ILBC TV, the International Live Beats channel. Actually, it's a challenge, but the challenge hasn't happened yet, and it's kind of turning into a channel, and I love it. We have Nathaniel Wyvern and an amazing guest, Evelyn Seeker. And next up, we have one of our donators tonight. Shouts out, if you enjoy the streams, you enjoy getting feedback, feel free to donate. It helps us keep going and doing more workshops for free. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up, including an XR live electronic multi-artist show that we're going to stream that is on April 16th. We have so much stuff going on. I can't wait to show you. And all these weird wonky visuals kind of going on are courtesy of Volta, which is a really fun free software I've been using. It's all audio reactive visuals. So yeah, next up is Nick Beeman, and Nick says arrangement and mixing is what they are looking for. So it's called Philosophies Long Version. this tension that you have with so minimal elements. I'm gonna just let this play through till it drops again because I can't wait. This is so cinematic. I think that as far as arrangement goes, you've got a really masterful way of just building tension with like there's not really that many things going on at once, and there doesn't have to be because you have such a cool tension going on. French horn drop. I mean,
Loud.
wow. It's beautiful. I know Zavi is definitely vibing in the kitchen listening to this. Evelyn, I'm like, sorry, I'm spacing out on this in the best way possible right now. I'm just hypnotized, I think.
Yeah, I love that. It was very suspenseful, cinematic, it was beautiful. Actually, really dig that. It was very cool. Two little things that I would like to hear changed is while the composition of the piano is pretty good, I do feel like your range of notes could be maybe a little more adventurous. I would love for the occasional lower octave passage to happen here and now, and maybe just soar briefly into a higher octave, then return to your bass line, just to give it a bit of a more dynamic compositional feel. And as some people in the chat said, the delay on the piano is definitely kind of competing with the piano itself, so maybe a high pass that and low pass that, so it's a little bit more better slotted into the mix without being at the cost of the piano.
I agree. Wow. I'm sorry, I'm completely hypnotized. Nathaniel, you're gonna have to talk. I love this. It makes me feel like I'm in outer space, which is a great thing.
And that's stacked on top of your sub, and I feel like you could do a little bit more to sort of glue them together, because right now your sort of lower bass is just doing this static thing where it just goes long pulse, long pulse, long pulse, and I feel like you should tie them together in a sense that obviously if you were to consider them one sound, the guy on the bottles has got to breathe, and right now he's inhuman. Effectively, he's a robot and he doesn't need to breathe. But I mean, you got a chance to allow your track to pulse a bit, and I think that would be really cool for helping drive up that tension that you're developing early on. The other thing is, well, I think that when you add the delay onto your piano, it helps balance it out. To begin with, it's far too panned to your right-hand side. I mean, in a traditional orchestra, the piano will be closer to the middle. It's a lot more mono compared to most of the instruments that you'd get. You got your violins and your cellos and stuff. They're all panned to the other side, but the piano tends to sit a lot closer to the middle because the full range of the piano is sort of acts as its own natural space generator.
David Attenborough talking about birds of paradise, spoken word with bird.
M83's Oblivion soundtrack is actually a good reference point from Xavi there. I mean, M83 is one of my favourite sort of synthy cinematic composers. Especially his album Hurry Up We're Dreaming. I think that's got nice scope. I don't know, it's just like, I think the overall progression here is really, really solid. It's just lots of little micro tweaks to sort of make it feel like a full orchestra sort of thing in your space. Obviously not literally, you're not using entirely orchestral instruments, but even when you add synthesizers, they're all replacing some analog in the real world. So it's just sitting there going through, if you mute everything and just focus on one layer at a time, you can figure out, okay, that one's sitting over here and that's fine. Then you add the counterpart on the other side and you start building up this balance. And then you just make sure that everything sort of has that arrangement in the space. So you just make sure some things cut out a little bit earlier, perhaps, to give the next note a little bit more room to come in and without being slammed right up against it. And so it's like, it's really, really, really close, and keep working on it, basically, because it's lovely. I'll also quieten down those horns because they come in too loud. You can have them get up to that volume, but I mean, what I'd probably do is automate the attack when they come in, so that then it's like whoop, whoop, and then you can start hitting into the full volume. But now that you've introduced us to them, they're not unknown and out of nowhere.
Yeah, the loudness of the horns. Some people in the chat agree. I love the horns so much, but even when I turned it down, it was definitely dominating over the other stuff. So I think just folding it back into the mix would be good. Yeah, we love you all. Evelyn, are you ready to share your screen? You want to like get the cat pictures off and open up? Because we have Evelyn. This is a real treat. Some of you might know that we do these little interludes of plugin of the week. Right now I can see this Inception screen, so I'm going to let you get your DAW back. But Evelyn is going to show us the plugin of the week, and she's going to show us exactly why she loves it. So without further ado, what is this plugin of the week, Evelyn?
Well, the plugin of the week is M Saturator by Melda Production. I believe this is a plugin everyone should try, especially if you can't afford something like Fab Filter Saturn, because we all know that everyone wants that plugin, but it's very expensive. So this would be a alternative which is still pretty warm and smooth sounding, and it will fatten up your sounds. But it has a couple of unique features, which kind of set apart from it too. Like right here, let's start off with this whoomp bass. Can you all hear that? Yeah, it's a little bassy. It's not very mixed down. So when we add Saturated to this without touching any of the settings, watch what happens to this sound. It immediately really fattens up and sits well. So, and if we turn off clipping and we drive up the analog a little bit more, we can get a bit of more that analog flavor. There's also a bunch of different modes from which you can select. You can go really gentle with your saturation on this in a soft 1 mode. But there's a cycle through them. You can hear how it becomes a little more harsh and a little bit more driven. Then there's the clip option, which is let me just turn down the sound a little bit for this, or actually the output a little bit for this. Immediately really fattens it up. And you can drive it really far. You can use this saturation as a really harsh distortion. Oh, it auto-muted there for some reason. But there's a couple of features in here which I believe, especially people who make deeper kind of basses and sounds, like in bass house and dubstep and maybe experimental trap and deep house, could really use. Because there's this option here which is harmonics. It controls the second, third, fourth and fifth harmonics of your sound, and this is not only great from a mixing standpoint but also from a mixing standpoint, because watch what happens when I play around with the second harmonic, for example.
Oh my god.
You can dial in less of it and more, but sometimes when you dial in less, it sounds like more. I have no idea how that exactly works. I'm just gonna admit that. But it sounds pretty cool, and that's what matters in the end, right? Now if we play with the third harmonic.
I love that. Advice of the day, people. Sometimes you don't really need to understand how it works if you just know that it sounds good.
Yeah, now let's play with the fourth harmonic. The second and fourth harmonic bring in even harmonics, which are common in kind of tube kind of distortions, and the third and fifth harmonics are odd harmonics, which I think are more common in sort of digital distortions like clippers and transistors. I mean, see how much I'm altering the sound just by playing around with these harmonics. Here's the fifth harmonic. If I draw it out, and I just mess around with the other harmonics a little bit, totally transforms the sound. Absolutely great.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And there's also a cool feature. Let me reset these parameters real quick, which allows you to sort of single band OTT the input signal, so you get a more evened out and more analog distortion, which is what the hell. Here it is with and without. You can see on the right here the line is more snapped to a kind of point, and it also really changes the character. Like, it no longer bounces up and down. Well, this isn't a particularly dynamic sound, but let me demonstrate that on this sound here. I've got a breakbeat to just demonstrate this sort of thing. Let me turn that down a little bit. If we turn on the compander, is this the right thing? Yes. We played the thresholds. You can hear how it slightly adjusts the character. Let's crank up the input drive a little bit. And once you combine that with the harmonics, you can do some really cool stuff with your drums, for example. Oh, I'm absolutely stupid. I had the wet off. Oh my god.
It happens. It happens all the time.
Let me redo that. I have no idea.
It's okay. It's a
I
spontaneous
was hardly hearing the
demo.
difference. I was like, am I fooling myself? Okay, let's try that again. With the compander off, you get this. And then you turn it on. Totally changes the character of the saturation. Let's turn down that input a little bit. And with the compander enabled, you make this a sort of more analog sort of saturation, which is really cool. If we turn up the analog parameter here more, maybe to give it a bit of second and fourth harmonics, you get this classic kind of tube sound to it. And this is absolutely great if you want to do some parallel distortion, because here it is without. Let me just gently fade that in. You can hear how the parallel distortion really blows these drums into life. Super cool, right?
Wow. Thank you so much, Evelyn. That's amazing. And I have to admit, I have this plugin and I've never used it because definitely sometimes I suffer. I think a lot of us do this. We install like too many things, especially with the Melda. They have so many things and you just like install it and then you're like, okay, like which ones what do I do now? But that one really has such a cool analog sound to it. So super amazing. Evelyn, thank you so much. And thank you so much to Always Frisky, who just gave us a donation. And by the way, Always Frisky gives amazing feedback and comments too. So we love you all. This is Feedback and Friends with Nathaniel Weimer and Evelyn Seeker. And my name is Alicia. We're on ILBC TV. And next up, we have Namra Sounds. They are looking for general mixing, production, song arrangement, and overall vibe. And a track is called Inspire.
Good job.
Wow, what a really really cool and unique chord progression. Kind of Egyptian, as some people have said. You notice I went a little crazy with the confetti and visuals because this has got a very epic kind of cinematic. Somebody said Zelda. I really like this kind of breakdown vibe. Natty, I know you like kind of the gamey music stuff.
I do indeed. Hopefully that fixes my background audio a little bit.
No, it sounds
Sorry.
much better. Much better.
I mean, my mic was probably cranked a little bit too loud, but also I wish the trucks would just give it up for anything. Anyway, I think that the big thing with a track like this is to be careful with how you present your piano. I mean, you've got those pads, and that right now at least they're very much in the same frequency spectrum as your piano when it comes in. To the point where they're actually competing for attention. This is where voicing, I think, becomes the most important thing to take away from it. So you want to make your piano a little bit more prominent in the mix, but also change up your chord voicing for your pads. So go a little bit higher and go a little bit lower to add the oomph to the bottom of your end of your piano, but also just to create effectively a harmonic emphasis on the chords themselves in your top end, so that then your piano is sitting there playing all its nice arps in the middle, and it all just creates this sort of nice glued together stack.
You know, that's interesting. That's some Admiral Bumblebee advice, if I ever heard that. He gave a great workshop to my students once about how sometimes when you're trying to fix the mix, you actually just change the chord voicing, because all these different notes have different frequency peaks, right? That's how pitch works. And so sometimes if you have too many notes in the low end, it gets muddy. Too many in the high end, it gets shrill. So sometimes just inverting that MIDI a little bit. You can use MIDI plugins if you're not like, you know, if you don't play instruments and you don't like, to be honest, I played piano since I was 4 till I was 12. I went through all the books, all the theory, and I was just so gosh darn stubborn that I just deliberately never really learned the theory. And now I'm just like, I'm so stupid. Like, I can't read music, and how many years of piano did I take? But, you know, you don't need to know that these days, because there's so many plugins that you can use to make your chords more interesting. And that's why I usually recommend Scalar. Stubborn me was like, no, I knew piano, I knew chords. And then I started playing with Scalar and was like, oh, these are actually weirder, more interesting ones than I might have thought of. And of course you have like heady Jacob Collier jazz electronic people that are masters of that kind of stuff. But if you're not, don't be afraid to like play around with, if you don't even have MIDI plugins, just, you know, in Ableton, you can just click on your note and like, you know, shift an up and down an octave with the hotkeys. So you could even just try doing that. And I think that would turn out really well. But I really love the chords. Ev, you got anything to add?
This track was a little bit out of my realm of knowledge for some reason. I don't know why. I don't have a lot to comment on it, except maybe, yes, like what was said before, the chord voicings could maybe be improved upon a little bit to make the mix sit a little bit better, but I don't really have much to say for this one. Sorry.
That's
But I
okay.
enjoyed
We
it.
don't always need to have stuff to say.
So
oh
yeah,
my
let's go,
God.
baby.
So I have another one that's on YouTube, and the problem is I don't pay for YouTube, so it's trying to give me an ad. So let me just get through this ad while I talk a little bit about it. So I love the YouTube videos, but I am a cheap musician and I do not have YouTube Premium, so it starts playing ads for me sometimes. It's actually the first time in a while that it's gotten through. Oh, I know why, because I don't have my ad blocker on Safari. Interesting. I'm going to have to figure that one out. But anyways, next up we have Gaspar Poet, aka Zareel86. Nice to see you. And I'm stoked to hear your track. As soon as I get through this Save the Children ad. Oh, I think that's going to happen right now. Oh man, YouTube is offering me a family plan. This is
Emotional damage.
Well, this is really, really mesmerizing. I think actually this last part of the track, this back half, is my favorite. It's got that almost like burial, gloomy, but uplifting and happy. And Rags always saying it best. I dig these vibes for sure. Sounds like a rainy, empty city street in Nolens, which is New Orleans for those of you who are not from the American South. It's just a translation there.
Yeah, I'm not going to try do an impression of that one. I can't do American accents at all.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that in the beginning there could have been a little bit more like arrangement wise and stuff. Like I wanted it to have the tension and the floatiness that the second half does. And I bet you Natty has ideas more detailed than me, but I was just sort of like, at the beginning, I wanted it to get a little bit further into me than it was getting. And then all of a sudden that second half dropped and I was like, wow, yeah, I was very lost. So Natty.
I mean, I think that one area to look at specifically is, well, one of your sounds. So you've got that, I mean, it sounds like a saxophone sort of sound. I mean, I'm not quite able to tell at this point whether it's library of a sax or just a very similar sort of synth patch, because it could be either. But I mean, you could have an opportunity to give it more space, because right now it's kind of just doing one thing sitting in the middle there, and everything else is so spacious that it actually sounds a tad out of place. You could automate it so that then you have it extended reverb tails occasionally, so it feels like it's drifting off into the middle of the sky effectively. And you know, I think that with this sort of sound you want everything to sort of be lazy almost, where they sometimes they take their sweet time about leaving, or they take their time coming in, so that you end up with this sort of push and pull of your sounds, rather than a sort of a static ambience, which is what you've got so far. I mean, let's see, there was a comment here that the always frisky, that was what Sue said. The fuzzy noise is clearly intentional. I hear it in many songs, not something I'd add to my own song, but actually works so well for this. I'm a believer of the fuzz now. I mean, I do like a general bit of fuzz, but I think here it's too constant. You know, you've got that, it's adding again to that really static texture you've got on, which is a nice texture in the moment, but it doesn't help drive the song along when it's the same energy all the way through. So I mean, it's really the point where you just sort of fiddle about with it, get your automation curves out, so that it's you just add that variety to it to help make everything flow together. Yeah, keep it. It's just you know, just don't have it so it's one constant presence throughout the whole song.
Anything to add, Ev?
I don't have much to say what hasn't been said already, honestly. That was very pretty, very mesmerizing. I absolutely loved it. I find it particularly hard to criticize because of how much I liked that, honestly.
That is amazing feedback.
It has this perfect balance of just kind of dreamy, and also there's a little bit of grit to it, to those in the cymbals and the percussion. If I had to really nitpick, there's two little things that stood out to me, which I think would benefit the mix if they were to be changed. The first thing is the cymbals and the percussion felt maybe a little bit grating in the upper mid-range, like 5 to 10 kilohertz. I would maybe check that out a little bit, because it felt like it was maybe little. It had a touch of harshness there. It felt maybe a little bit pushed. And the rim snare felt a little bit picky because of how bright it was. You wanted to... Everything was kind of relaxed, but that rim snare was kind of... it felt a little bit too upfront, a little too bright, and kind of clashed with the overall vibe of the song. I would really check out the transient of that because of how bright it was. Otherwise, I absolutely loved that. It was chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. Amazing feedback, Phil. What better can you get? So we got Monmouth shouts out to the chat. Untitled track, just says still a whip, adding elements to the track. Just wanted to share the idea.
We might be better damage we had done. So we just cry and call it off. Cause we've been hiding from ourselves for way too long. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow, that took, I think, everybody in the chat by total surprise in a good way. It's definitely a mix of genres that we don't hear a lot. So as a few other people have said, I'm just going to launch right in and say, you know, your vocals, your guitar, you clearly have experience in this part. All that stuff sits really nice and sounds almost like pro already. I think that, you know, since it's a whip, I think you've done what I do sometimes, which is sort of sketch out every sort of aspect of the track almost like in one line, or that's what it sounds like your main sort of synth in the drop is doing everything. And I think that it would be much better if it didn't do everything. You can have the same melody, the same cadence, but try just swapping out a note here and there with a similar sounding but not quite the same. So this is like the Hockett technique that we also, this is another drinking game item, but the Hockett technique, if you've never tried it, look it up. It actually comes from medieval terms when you had different sections of the choir that would take turns singing different notes of the melody to give the illusion that it was one continuous line. But it was the trippiest thing they could do back then, right? Because you just had a whole like choir room and then all of a sudden like the melody's coming from here, but it's here and it's here. And it's so in bass sound design, you do that with like, you know, changing out, like you could copy that patch that you're using and then just tweak a couple things and then copy it again and tweak a couple more things and then just alternate which of those is playing at once. So yeah. That's basically what I would do. And yes, some people are talking about the queue. We have a monster queue today, and you know we tend to give advice. We are trying to keep it tight and still give you really good advice, but we do go through the whole queue before it cuts off, and we appreciate it. Hang around as long as you can. And I know that it's running a little long and stuff, but I'm gonna let Natty talk a bit. And hey, like Natty, Evelyn, if you don't have much to say, it's okay to say that you just love it, and we can leave it at that. And we're gonna try and get through everything. If you enjoy, please feel free to donate and help us to keep us free and keep staying on. But you know, Natty and I tend to pull marathons, so don't worry. Natty.
So, speedrun. I think that ARP that comes in your chorus, it's out of tune. You need to go and look at what notes you're using again, because I mean, while you can have something dissonant, I think you should leave your dissonant to your wubs. Have your ARPs in this case be more in line with the general key of the song, because it's already providing a counterpoint to the wubs, and so you don't need them to be crazy too. The other thing is those wubs themselves. So you got your verses are really nice. I mean, it's got that really old school sort of punk rap sort of soundtracky vibe like going on there, and I think your vocals are very nice. But your drop and your chorus is not heavy enough. I think you need to go really edgy with it. I mean, you look at some of the modern hyperpop sort of tracks, and they go really aggressive with their sounds. I mean, Evelyn, did you say that's probably the right inspiration angle to take for a modern punk rocky sort of? I don't know.
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
said some 41. I guess Linkin Park a little bit. That kind of shouty. I'm edgy and I'm cool and I'm emo.
It sounded so sarcastic.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that these songs should also be a little bit tongue-in-cheek almost.
Yeah, you can't take it too seriously. Have you made this kind of stuff, Evelyn?
No, I have not. At least not like this. I thought it was very nice. The contrast between the drop and the verses just absolutely caught me off guard. Just gonna say that right off the bat. And I think it was in a pretty good way too. Leo thing I would like to hear change is that your drop sims definitely could be a bit more aggressive, like make them a little bit more bright, a little bit more loud, maybe a little bit more saturated. Would really add to whatever you've got going on right here. It would make it a lot more high energy. And I definitely would turn down your drums a bit, because your drums were quite loud, and especially in the verses, I wish your kick wasn't so completely opened up, so aggressive, so in your face. I would put a low pass on it a little bit, even if it's just a shave off a little bit of that high end to make it more impactful on the drop, and then make it fit in with the rest of the inner verse more dynamically.
Good suggestions, everybody. And shouts out to all of you who've just been coming back and hanging out. We love hanging out with you too. And honestly, just watching you all give each other such great feedback. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just sitting here flipping, hearts and flames. And I'm glad that I've just found some little things for me to do, because sometimes you all just like say it better than I ever could. So with that, next up, we have, you know what time it is? We have one of our other favorites, Chris the Wizard, and his feedback that he wants. I got to read both of these things, because one of them is in the track and one of them is in the feedback request. So let me just read the paragraph. The year is 1982, and the coolest thing on planet Earth that I could do was to ride my big wheel down a big hill, grab the skid control, and bang a perfect 180 Yui. Then in all my glory, I look back up the hill and salute the imaginary crowd losing their minds. This song is the soundtrack this moment deserved, but never had. Big wheel cruising is for the 5-year-old me in 1982, landing the perfect 180 skid out. Bruh. Chris is wondering, is the sub too prominent? Is it dramatic enough? And how is the mid-side balance? All right, we will check it out, Chris. Chris, the wizard. Always such a pleasure. And I really, really enjoy your SoundCloud art as well. It's always so, I mean, I have really not much to say about that. You were wondering about the sub. I don't think it was too prominent at all. Like, I think it sat really nicely and your highs were really, really crisp. I really love the lead that comes in near the end. I love the little touches that you do, like super on point. Natty is more of an expert in this genre, so I'm going to let him do his Natty monologues.
Okay, well, I'll speed run this a little bit too. I think that right now the thing that stood out to me most that might need a little bit tweaking is your snare and your toms are very sharp sounding, and I think that with all the glittery synthiness that you've got going on, they don't need to be. You can effectively cut some of that high end off and give it more of a thump rather than a click. And for the transient, I think that would work a lot better for the vibe that you've got going on here. So I mean, that's the first thing I'd tweak. The other thing is, like, in that outro, you go really weird with your filtering, and I'm not sure if it's some sort of flanger or chorusy effect on there at the end, or if it's just filters. Can't really tell at this point because we've only got to the end anyway. I'd bring some of that effects a little bit further forward, play about with that a little bit more and introduce it as like little micro fills through your bass line, because it's a hard phaser. Okay, so I was close. That's I think that if you introduce that effect a little bit earlier and use it as a fill, it would help vary up that very repetitive static bass line a little bit more, just a smidge, because with this sort of music that's fine, but I mean it would just elevate it to being just that little bit more spicy. Ear candy. Woo-hoo.
Ear candy.
But I mean, overall, I mean, combined with your narrative blurb, I mean, I think that you wouldn't have a problem selling this once you nail down that snare sound. I think everything else sounds really good. I was definitely vibing out hard to that one.
Yeah, I loved it. Evelyn, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Great suggestions. It was a very nice track. My only nitpicks would be the drums feel maybe a little bit flat, even though the toms and the snare are a little bit sharp. I would do some transient shaping on your drums, because they are not cutting through the mix as well as they should. And I would, since this mix is very focused on your toms too, I would take your toms and just add just a touch of a bit more beef to them, because I feel like they could be a little punchier.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nitpick, but I agreed. I think other than that, like, it's so good. It sounds so finished. So yeah, we love you all. Next up, we got Mux in a track called Suffocate. Looking for feedback mostly on the beginning and brittled up. Drop is there, but not finished. Okay. Now, the good thing about this being Psytrance is that we could probably have the track playing the entire time we're giving feedback because it's like 7.5 minutes long. But I mean, super tight. I don't have a ton to say because this is very much outside of my genre, but I'll tell you this much. I usually really dislike Psytrance or anything like Psytrance or anything with the word trance in it. The only kind of trance I like doing is like, I kind of enjoy going to hypnotic trances like with a hypnotherapist, but usually trance annoys me, and you've actually managed to make me enjoy this because the detail in it, the sound design is really intelligent and it's really well mixed. I can hear all these parts underneath me even as I'm talking, like I still hear all the little details. Psy breaks. That's why I like it, because there's a break beat, probably. But I do really love the old school sounding break beat of it, and I really, really love the sound choices and the timbral layering that you've done, because honestly, and no, it's not too long at all. I mean, usually on this, if we didn't start talking after 3 minutes, we would go. I mean, sometimes Nathaniel and I have gone for like 4 hours, but we're trying to be reasonable. So no, I think for this style of music, it's the appropriate length, But I think the build is really good. All of these sound effects, all your ear candy is dialed. Evelyn, I don't know if you listen to Psy Breaks, which is what I guess this is, but got any thoughts?
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of trance back in the day. I think this hits all the right spots. It's very nice. Like, sample selection is good, sound selection is good, the mix down is very pleasing. I generally don't really find much wrong with it. Maybe I would put a transient shape on the drums, make them pop a little bit more through the mix, because I feel like they could maybe cut through a little bit better. But I don't really have any other criticism other than that, because that was really good. Like, well done.
Natty Log?
I mean, nah, it's not gonna be that bad. It reminds me of playing some of the video games I've got on like my computer and my Switch, so it's all kind of fun. I think the biggest pain point for me is that your drums are ever so slightly too repetitive. I mean, the breakbeats in themselves are nice, but you don't use enough fills to really justify how much you focus on them. So I mean, I think that if you, that's the main thing to work on next, is just giving it ever so slightly more variation to your drums, having a little bit more chance where you maybe focus on just the kick going, or just the snare and the hats, and sort of, space it out, give us a little bit more breathing room from the constant boom, 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 bit.
Oh, that's so true. You always notice. I love your detail. I totally like some cool toms, or like even some like sampled breaks maybe to just give it that little fill. That would be super, super tight.
But I mean, I really love the cyberpunky sort of edgy synths you've got going in the background with like I think there's a formant shift going on in one of them that's like, I like all those sort of little details in the back. It's all fun.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
fun
I
tracks.
need to go in not too long, because I have a hospital appointment.
No problem,
next
Evelyn.
morning.
We love you. However long you can stay, just let us know. I mean, if you need to go now, that's totally fine too.
Yeah, I would prefer to go now actually, because I still need to shower and need to do stuff around the house. And it's,
We love you, Evelyn. We wish you all the best with tomorrow, your health and everything. Natty and I are going to marathon it out, which does mean we'll get through the feedback just a tiny bit faster as well. But if you're waiting in the queue, thank you for being patient. We appreciate your support, your community, and your feedback for other artists. And I think we all, myself included, learned so much just from the advice that we give each other, which is why we do it here on LBC TV. Thank you so much, Evelyn, and please come back soon. We always love having you so much.
We love you.
yes, it was great being here. Love being here. I love hearing all the tunes. Everyone here has such good talent, and you, Isha, and Nathaniel, you are both wonderful people. I'm glad to be here. Everyone, have a nice evening. Peace.
Peace out, Evelyn. All right. So thank you so much, Evelyn. Natty and I are going to keep going. We have next up a track called Godspeed by Swill. I'm going to keep messing around playing with Volta while we listen to this. Swill is not looking for any specific feedback, so we will just check it out. Wow. Again, the chat said it best already. That is a lot of ideas in one track, and they're all really dope. Like, I really like all of them. Like, each section was almost like a DJ mixing into another drop. But that being said, I think that, maybe just gluing some of those ideas together a little bit more. Like, the breakdown was super tight. I like the way that you like filter it out and back in. Super nice little turnarounds and edges and everything. But I just want to hear like the other sections be more cohesive. So maybe, yeah, somebody says, bet you can make a full EP out of that. CT Lee. Natty, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think that here, when it comes to developing a song like this, or turning into even a series of songs, storytelling, that's the most important thing with something like this. You're telling a story when you've got so many different sections and elements, and you need to decide what that story is, because right now, it doesn't really feel like there's a climax as such. And you think about how plot moves, you got your intro, which is like, you establish the character of the story and what their normal life is before you upend it, and then everything gets crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier until you build up and you resolve it. And right now, I think if you can fix your arrangement, you effectively fix your mix, because everything's kind of unbalanced. Everything's competing for attention, and I don't think it needs to be, because you've got a lot of really strong melodic elements here that all just need that room to shine on their own merit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd say focus on what scene you want to portray, what's like actual internal message you want the track to have. That's maybe even give yourself a chance to revisit elements, because right now you just skip on to the next one, and it's okay to come back to the ideas as well. And it can be a little bit poppy in places, and that's fine. I think you can get away with it because of how distinct each of your elements are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well said as usual, Natty. Great track, just needs a little bit of cohesion kind of going on. All right, next up we got Mythic, and it's a song, and they say that I'm pretty satisfied with the chorus. Does the intro/verse hold your interest instrumentally? Good question. We will find out now.
Was it easy? Fill your cup with all of my love. Yeah, was it easy? Breaking me down when I could build you up, just to leave me stranded. walking away. Wish I listened to all of my friends say never again. Yeah, I wish I listened. Cause even deep down I know what's wrong in my head. Like I deserve someone who's more than goodbye. Still I keep coming back, don't know why. One more kiss then call it quits. Yeah, tonight. Every time you come back, you never wanna stay. And when I say I love you, you don't know what to say. Every little promise, I know you're gonna break. Cause you only love me when I'm walking away. 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 You never wanna stay, so I'll walk away.
Well, I've been just vibing to this the whole time. This is definitely a vibe. And I mean, the vocal is really, really good. So just by default, I think you don't need to have much going on instrumentally to hold my interest. In fact, the more stuff you have, the more it's just going to get in the way of that nice cleanliness of the mix. I really, really love all the timbres. And yeah, this is radio stuff. You know, I mean, you could do tiny mini ear candies. You know, sometimes I hear this in pop production. They really restrain themselves, but like way less often than EDM. They just do it like, I don't know, twice in the whole song, right? Just like a little tiny moment where it just goes like little tiny filtering or fills, almost just a micro tension overall is what I would do. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, I thought overall it was a really well done, and it is super commercial track. For me, I've been towards the second half. You started introducing these really subtle little vocal harmonies underneath. I'd really love to hear some of that on emphasis words earlier on. You know, but it's like it came out, and I was like, oh, that's what I've been missing for like the entire first verse and the first drop. Is just these moments of harmony in your vocals, and so try playing about that bit as well. Also into your first chorusy drop bit, you just need to have a little bit more ambience when you just sort of cut out, and you've got not a lot going on there before you introduce the drop synth, like, and I think you just need to extend some tails a little bit into that space, so that then it doesn't. For a minute I thought, oh, as the track stopped, you know, it felt like maybe it's something either it been paused or it was. I was like, oh, that's weirdly like, is it over? You know, it's hard to tell with whips and stuff as well because people can send us unfinished stuff all the time. But you know, so just find some sort of ambience to fill in that space just a little bit to make sure it clear that it's still going on, and then you can hit back in and with the full thing, and that's fine. You know, it's just like that. It's such a small set of tweaks. I mean, everything else sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, definitely radio, and it's so much talent on this show. It's crazy, and so many people like giving that whole, you know, with my students, we have a shorthand for it. We call it SPD, and it means Standard Producer Disclaimer, and it's like a way shorter way to do the thing of like, hey, by the way, like this kind of sucks, and like it isn't the final mix, and like I need to do this still, and I haven't done this, and I haven't done the. You just say SPD, and we know what you mean. So next up, we have Galactic Guitar, another awesome regular in a track called Bark. I don't know what it is with this picture you always use, my friend, but I'm down. Looking for, I guess, this is my first dubstep track. Okay, first, everybody's like trying dubstep right now. It's fun. All right. This one I think definitely needs some more variation, but I think we got the vibe of it. I like that badass kind of like almost like rock vibe, you know? Like it reminds me of like almost like that classic like life like living on the edge kind of like rocker thing where you just like I guess nowadays you would rail ride instead of headbang, right? But yeah, the mix, as others have said, is a little bit muddy, and then the bark itself is a little bit harsh. I think it's tricky when you're trying to do that sort of like distorted telephony thing because it's really easy to be like way too resonant, you know? So I would definitely work on also varying your sounds. If you're going to make this kind of dubstep, you have to change out some of the bass. You have to hawk it, the bass. So yeah, CT Lee suggests automating the modulation to switch up the sound. I could suggest hawk it again, which is basically a different way of doing, you know, an automation of making your sound move. I'm sure Natty has in the earful, but I think, you know, to me it sounds like you're in like stage one, and maybe you had the idea session and now it's time to like sit down and break things apart and get a little bit more detailed.
I mean, I don't actually have a huge amount to add beyond what you've suggested here. I mean, perhaps, taking that rock comparison, go look at some videos of guitarists chugging their guitars. So it's like, and see how they vary their tones and use that as inspiration for developing your wubs.
Inspiration for developing your wubs is Nathaniel Wyvern's new audiobook, straight from Scotland.
I'm not that Scottish.
I love it. What do you mean? You're like literally in Scotland right now. How much more Scottish could you be?
That's a difficult question.
You are the most Scottish person I know, literally. So, all right, CT Lee been waiting patiently. So we've got you up next, and let's see what they said. Open to any and all feedback. Considering this a finished track, but we'll certainly try to apply feedback to future tracks. Okay, and the track is called Don't Wake Up.
Shoving off again. Somewhere far away. No return address. Feeling sinking in. just like she said. She's never coming back. Never coming back. Let's wait another day to prove it further true. Too deep in this daydream.
Wow, some really cinematic stuff. I'm loving this like theme. I feel like this is the whole thing. This whole stream tonight could have been a movie score. I really love the vocalist on this. Really epic, beautiful, and ambient. The only thing that is breaking the mood a little bit for me is that kick. I just think it could use a few things, and one of them is low mid notching. This happens a lot with kicks, especially when you're trying to make big epic impact sounds, right? You have to EQ them a lot because they can get muddy very easily. But it also kind of sounds a little bit dry compared to the rest of it. And then what you can do with this is you can split EQ it. So I do this all the time in Ableton. I make a multi-chain rack where I split the low end and sometimes the mid and highs together, sometimes the mids, highs separately. And this just allows me to take any effect and make it a multi-band effect. So even if it's not. And this way you can keep the bottom of the kick really dry in the sub region where you never want reverb, but you could take the top and you could automate some kind of really, really cool, almost like shimmery thing to just give it a little more sparkle, because the vocals are so magical, and you know the rest of it is so magical. It's just that kick just a little bit, and that's just a nitpick, as I mean, it's a beautiful track, but I just, you know, with all this like cinema and all this shimmer, I really want to hear that kick kind of a little more like big and clear and like echoing a little bit. Any thoughts, Natty?
I only have one nitpick as well. You got that sort of more sibilant, whispery sort of vocal going on in the sides. I think it's ever so slightly too loud, to the point where it's actually bringing out a bit of harshness in your track where you're not really in. I don't think you're intending it to be. So I mean, I think you can get away with just making, because there's not much else going on in that extreme left and right. You can actually just bring them down a little bit. It'll still work, and I think would just help create the sense that it is farther away more so than it is now, because it's like he's whispering right in my ear, but you've got all this delays and reverbs going on, which means that I don't think that's intentional.
Yeah.
So, you know, just pull them down a little bit and everything else will just come out a little bit more in response, and I think that'll fix the imbalance that I was hearing across the track.
Cool. Interesting. Nick Beeman thinks the vocals could use some cleaning up. Here's recording background noise. It's sometimes agreed. It's, you know, and in a way, like, it does add to that kind of like dirty sort of quality, like that lo-fi, that, I guess I've mentioned Burial already today, but I love Burial, so that dirty thing. But I do agree that like sometimes you can actually work with that noise if you gate it, but with an envelope on it, so you can almost make it like an artistic filter, but you do have to clean it up somewhat. So that is a good point. But other than that, what a really unique vocalist, and what a haunting song. Very well put, Natty. Okay, so we got Tenhib up next with a track called Kasik. Why I can't talk right now. I'm just gonna shut up and we're gonna listen. And you know, the only thing that specific feedback is, what do you think about this approach? Sound design advice, ideas for labels and marketing, really any constructive criticism. All right, let's go. All right, so I need to get like a special like emoji or like a sound for this because this happens so much. First track ever award. Wow, again, first track ever. It's light years ahead of my first track ever. Like, this is a nice vibe, a nice groove, really nice pads. The only thing I would start to work on now is starting to glue together the core of your track. So like some stuff to think about, like you've got the genre that you want nailed. I mean, it sounds really nice. It definitely needs to start working in a little bit of change ups, but it's your first track. I just hate giving feedback because I'm like, you don't even need to know all this. You just gotta go make more tracks, right? But when you do, I think since you're trying to make techno in this kind of style, it's minimal, so it's really important that the elements you have are really tight. So if this is the direction that you're gonna go, I would zoom in on the mixing a bit, and I would think, okay, you've got some good drum choices, but some of them are a bit long, some of them bleed into each other. So you can, I don't know what DAW you're using, but in Ableton, you can set up this choke function in the drum racks so that certain groups of samples never play at the same time. Because for instance, if you're like hitting a ride cymbal over and over again and opening and closing it, it's not possible for that ride to overlap itself, right? So if you set it up, it sounds not only more realistic, but it cleans the sound up. So I would just, the same thing with your bass, your sub thing, it's very low and it kind of bleeds into the kick drum. So learning about side chaining, that would be something I would try. Natty?
So, main obviously, yeah, first track ever. Woo! I think that for me, one area to focus on with this sort of music is your hats. Right now, obviously, they're kind of doing one thing for the entire track. And while from a rhythmic perspective, there's nothing wrong with that, one of the places to start working would be, one, tweaking your MIDI so you can add build-ups and drop-downs so it gets harder and softer in the velocity and how that triggers the samples. The other thing would be filtering. You can start experimenting with filter automation or even panning, so you can have it go from one side of my ear to the other side of my ear, and that creates the sort of sparkly variety that carries a techno track along with, while keeping it in that really I think it's pretty sure it's 16ths, so it's like really rigid sort of pattern, and that's fine. Techno does fine with the rigid pattern, but it's all that sort of timbral sparkle that then keeps it from being the same.
Yeah, exactly. I think at this point you got like 7 minutes 49 seconds and it's still it's loopy, right? So you need to just do small tweaks. But I mean, again, just make like a ton more tracks.
Yeah, have fun. Let's go.
Ideas for labels and marketing, don't worry about that now, please. Make like 30 more tracks before you start thinking about that, okay? Like, you have to figure out what your sound is. How can you think of labels and marketing when you don't even know who you are yet? And trust me, that's going to change too. If anybody actually just has like nothing better to do and wants to go hunt down the childhood photos, aka my early tracks, it's like 20 years of music. It's crazy. And I don't sound anything like I did at the beginning. So, I mean, like, please do not worry about labels and marketing at all.
Relax. You're putting too much pressure on yourself immediately.
Yeah, way too much pressure. Okay, so sadly, I wanted to play Friskies, but Frisky said don't play it, so I'm going to put Frisky first in the queue for next week, so we're going to skip past that. We got Schlop up next. I saw Schlop earlier. Schlop, I hope you're still here. You've been real patient, and I'm just going to get to you anyways, because you've been good. So, all right, your song link, I'm going to move on to this. This track is, yeah, definitely at this point, it's a good length for a techno track, but just do a little bit more to it. But great job. Amazing job. First track award. Woo-woo. As if we need more air horns in this show. So, all right. The next one is Schlop. And they want feedback on their sidechain. Is it too much? Is the main thing that they're looking for. So let's check it out.
Yeah, we coming for you.
It's full of jealousy is what I like especially. It's full of jealousy is what I like especially.
Damn. That is some serious hype train stuff, my friend. I want a copy of this when you're finished, please. I really, really love this kind of vibe, like the bounciness, the groove. It's kind of like going to see like Saruta, Ivy Lab, all that kind of stuff. That's some of my favorite stuff, and this is the stuff that I play for sure. So I really love those deep metallic bass. You're so good at getting that like really like chewy, chunky, like, I mean, it sounds like, I said this before, it sounds like the Black Box in Denver. It sounds like that like thick, fat sound system, and it brings me right back to, you know, Nespin West is saying, definitely feel like there could be someone rapping over this. That would be super tight to have like a VIP version. I could possibly hook you up with somebody really, really sick. So I think you should.
Ooh,
I think
take that
you should-
offer.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say who because I definitely shouldn't be dropping any names, but like I could think of a really dope rapper for this. But I love this. I want to play it when you're done. I don't think the sidechain is too much. I really enjoyed it. I was head bopping to it for sure. And I do think maybe there could have been like some like natural sounds just to balance all the cool metallic sound design, like more than there were. I loved I love the rest of it though. Natty.
I mean, as far as a production standpoint, I don't really have anything to suggest. It sounded really good on my headphones, and I mean, my headphones are consumer grade ones, so this is what the sort of sound profile a lot of other people will be listening on, and it sounded really balanced and solid. So good job there. I mean, and also I think your spectrum is good enough that if I was to sit and play this on my phone, it would still sound solid. So, it's very wook music.
It's a Colorado.
So I mean, somebody suggested that they felt a rocking. Yeah, 5Gs has suggested that it might be good to add a rocking riff during the sort of middle breakdown, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a matter of maybe try it and see what happens. But I mean, as it stands, if this is your intention, it works.
Yeah. Very good. Very, very dope. And I really love it. Chunky. So, yeah.
Chunk.
Chunk. Okay, so we are rolling along in this queue. I think we're actually getting a little bit faster. This is weird though. Prod by Sasa, didn't they already go? If people go twice, I'm gonna get through. We'll do them, but we're gonna do everybody's first ones because we gotta be fair. All right, so we're going to go to Cheb. That sounds cool. A track called... Oh, I'm having trouble. Hold on. I have to load this YouTube. I'm scared it's going to give me ads again. Please, no. I actually get it right off the bat. It's our lucky day. So I'm having trouble with music theory and do everything by teaching myself via YouTube. This is especially hard when I try to use acapellas like in the track that I want to have reviewed. It's a free to use acapella from Looperman and I am in contact with the vocalist. There shouldn't be any copyright issues. Okay, cool. But I'm no expert, so it will be fine if you ignore this one. Oh, I mean, that sounds like it's going to be okay. I'm fine with it. So it's a Frank Yola Rocket Bars Cheb remix. All right.
Yeah. This that motherfucking Yola. Just in case you ain't know it. Yeah, I got what you need. Yo. A lot of feelings, let's speak upon them. No need for syrup, had a shoulder, I could lean on it. Feeding fiends, I was feeding off them. I was busy cooking up the dope, but they was busy ODing off it. Fiending, and for the record, kept it 100. Fuck a wrist and neck, the streets, the only thing I'm flooded. Coming off a drug, the same feeling is when my music pauses. Get withdrawals, I withdraw, I don't do deposits. Nah. The streets taught me how to whip the raw. Before long, it was a hit. We just hit it off. Took a hit of buff and now they can't get enough. I'm intervening like interventions. I get involved. Stop it. I tell my bitch, let's get it on. I hit it raw, then I hit the stove, then I cook the raw. The Johnson strong, she can get the rock. They don't want smoke with me unless it's the kind you cop. Nah. Yup. And I got that. Yeah. Yola, Pop, Frank. Yup, and I got that. Yeah, Yola, Pop, Frank. 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 It's Yola. Y'all already know. Yo. I like the matchstick, stick it in water just like a baptism. When I pull it out, it's all white just like a hat trick. Magic. Best to stack it bread for your casket. Get a pasta. 11's name said in past tense. You see the wrist and I whips this with the cool kids. See how the cool whip? I keep the hammer in the toolkit, cause when it's on sight, it's bullseye. Like nailed it. I'm telling them that I'm the best, but not cowlit. I'm on another route, sticking out just like a cowlick. I'm in the house by the album, but I don't house it. Leaving out the spot with bags like I was shopping. I rock shows, I open up, but they can't top this. I'm rolling with the top dogs, but I don't mean Kendrick. Follow trends. I'm with Supreme and we be killing shit. R.I.P. the beast and my condolences. Yeah. It's Yola. Y'all already know. Yo.
First of all, this beat is freaking sick. I really like this beat. It's minimal, but it's clean, but it's interesting. It's got really cool movement. I love this glitchy 8-bit part. I love the panning. I mean, this is like definitely my style. Please, if you're out there, can I have the instrumental of this? Sorry, I'm being such a tune solicitor today. It's just because, I haven't really been like DJing in so many years, and now like through COVID, and now I'm like, oh, I get to do it again. But this is really dope. I mean, as some said, the vocalist, what did Rag say? The vocalist is like Sylvester from Looney Tunes. But I thought the timbre worked really well when you did like these little chops and glitches. Like it sounded so cool, and I actually wanted it as an instrumental just with vocal chops in it. Like from that, I thought it was so dope. Natty, what did you think?
I mean, the vocals. I mean, they're definitely interesting lyrically.
Interesting.
Yeah. For me, I think that regardless of whether they're going to rhyme or not, because you don't always have to, especially with a sort of more spoken word rap. But every line is very on grid, and everything comes too quickly. It's like right now the vocalist isn't breathing at all. He's just going right in one line, next line, next line, next line. But also, while your beat when it's on is really cool, it never lets up. I mean, you've not really got much distinction between your sections of your vocal. Like, I mean, when you're combining a vocal and an instrumental, you have to match the energy of the vocalist too, in some respects, with how you arrange the track. You got to give them, one, room to have breaks, and two, if they're going to be talking about different things, like when he was going about, I mean, was it Frank?
Frank, it was I don't know, the vocalist or
The guy he was talking about going ew.
I
Or
don't.
whatever, yuck, or whatever it was. You know, the guy, you know, like that feels like that sort of stuff should be emphasized tonally with the instrumental too, where it's like, it takes a moment to go, ew, that guy sucks. Like, why am I, you know, we need to get rid of this guy, he sucks. Like, lyrically, there's that sort of, it was, I feel like it was meant to be a diss track of some sort with the way the vocals are, but, you didn't really have that tonal variation in your backing track to emphasize that this is a diss. This is a moment where we should go, everyone should be jeering in unison with the rapper, effectively.
Oh, jeering in unison. I like, well put. Yeah. Amazing. Oh, I'm Max. I don't know if you're still there. I saw Max at the beginning, but Max is old school. I know Max in real life. I am so proud of him. He's just like been killing it. This is a whip that he has. It's made during a snowstorm. Second drop is even better. Something new. Open to any and all feedback. Okay, I'm really, really psyched to hear this because Fully Maxed has been just like rising. You know, every track he made has been better and better, and super, super proud of him. So this is a photo. Aw, nice to see your face, Max. Just super good vibes, good person, and talented musician. All right, let's just check it out. some nice vibes from Fully Maxed here. I really, really love this swung beat you got going on. It's unique, like it's garage, but it's not like typical, or as Nathaniel would say, garage. But I really love like the swing. However, when you're doing the breakdown, the drum fill, like that kick, doom, 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 that should be swung too, because it doesn't quite go. Like it sounds almost like you're mixing another track in. Like I think it would be super cool if the build up with the kick just went like dun 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 dun, right? So just a little bit to go with your beat more. And the intro, I think, could use some texture, right? Some more, like it's got some already, but more, like a little bit of things that evolve, or maybe those things need to be a little more in the forefront, because I feel like it takes a little bit of a long time to get to that place that I wanted to get to, but it is I think a beautiful track. So Natty, you got any thoughts for Max?
I mean, I'm in agreement with Nespin here. The drums are a bit much for a nice chill track. I definitely would maybe look at cycling through some of your drum samples, or how you're tweaking how you're processing them a bit, because they're very slammy and everything else is not, but in a good way. I mean, I really like the atmosphere you've carved out with this track, but then it's just like the drums are knocking right outside the wall, and it's like, why? You know, ease up a little bit. So I mean, just a test. I think it's a case of just experimenting, seeing what you can get away with sometimes it's okay to just imply the percussion in places. You don't have to literally slam everyone's face in with it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I think that would be like the stage 2 of this track, is just a little bit more rhythmic variation and building in and out like a little bit more. Yeah.
We got a new chatter. Just gonna quickly respond to that. Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
We got the Hebrew version of my name, so hello. Anyway, unfortunately our feedback queue is closed for this week. We had 32 submissions this week.
32. We're almost there. We're on number 26 right now.
Yeah, so we've been going for a few hours, but you can tune in next week, 8 p.m. GMT, and submit to us a tune then, or come say hi on Discord, discord.gg/EDMP, which I will place in chat.
Yes, and also just pro tip, if you want to get in soon on the queue, if you come in like a little bit before, once I ping everyone in Discord, that's when the queue starts to fill up. But if you get in there like half an hour before it starts, and just put your name in there, it'll be almost empty and you'll get through at the beginning. But I also really love the community that this is building, because everyone is giving each other such great feedback. So thank you so much, and thanks as always to my partner in crime, Nathaniel Wyvern, for his attentive and thoughtful feedback and his monologues. I love them. Finally, we got an Audius submission. I would always recommend using Audius, because they don't compress the way that SoundCloud compresses, and it's uncompressed audio. And so this is a track by XE Fusion, so I'm looking very forward to this. I am familiar with their work and have enjoyed quite a lot of it, so this is exciting. And please, 5Gs, join the Discord. I mean, we're always here. We're always giving each other feedback, production, sound design tips, music theory, self-care. We talk about meditation. We talk about recipes, and sometimes just general music production. So next up, XE Fusion, Escape. sorry, audience kept playing there, but always just like straight party from XE Fusion. I really, really love your mixing is so clean. So clean, so enjoyable. I definitely think that main Stranger Things kind of riff needs to evolve a little bit because it repeats, and the repeat is good. Like, it's a good riff and everything, and it fits really well into everything. But in the breakdown, I found myself imagining like a sample rate reduction automation or like bit redux. So it was like like crushing down again with the beatboxing. I know. But how else do you explain things? You know, it's that old joke of like, do you know that song that goes?
And it's also, as audio focused people, sometimes it's best just to get it out in sound.
Yeah, just to get it out. Well, we're both vocalists, so I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't know from the way that I squawk on this stream, but I swear when I'm trying to sing, sometimes I can't. but no, I mean, I think just that art needs to be evolved, and bit crushing, distortion, like maybe uses some of those cool combo distortion plugins. I've been really enjoying those to like get me unstuck lately. Plugins like Thermal or Minimal Audio Rift, really, really dope. Just like basically complicated distortion plugins that have LFOs and filters and different automations in them. And Rift is cool because it's a bipolar distortion, so you can have separate distortions on the negative and positive polarity. Maybe I'll make that the plugin of the week another week. But I would use something like that on it and automate it, and from there it's just about like little finishing touches, obviously, like all the little things in the arrangements of the tracks, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you get the right level of heaviness with a track like this. I mean, it's sort of, people compared it to Danger, which, I think it's the right area of comparison with a song like this. I mean, I think that if you can nail that ARP, you can turn this from a sort of, a very soundtracky, this could be accompanying something, to a really identifiable track, because I think that's what's missing for me with this one. Like, right now, there's no one specific hook that really grabs me. And I mean, I think it might even be a case of, rather than having just one ARP, you could start stacking your voicing, so you have points where it's sort of harmonic arpeggiating rather than just one mono note. And that might bring it the sort of the little bit of sparkle that it requires to really stick in, become an earworm. I mean, basically you want people to sort of hum it back, but at the same time know there's bits missing. Like, they have the other bits going on in their head. Like, sometimes when I'm at work and I'm bored and wandering around, I will have, like, old school orchestral music going on in my head, and I'll be imagining the full orchestra going alongside whatever simple bit I'm humming. And that's kind of the sort of experience I'd love to sort of see replicate here, where it's just that little bit more complex, but not in a distracting manner, so it's just simple harmonic stuff can really do that, I think.
Sorry, the comments in chat are killing me. I love it. But I think what we're gonna do is, there are two people that submitted. Chris is still here, so we'll play Chris's track probably at the end, just because there's only a couple more left, so I'm gonna get through. We're gonna go with Ground next. This track called Feel You. No specific feedback, so we will just check it out.
I can
Okay, that last part should have come sooner. Like I really actually got into it at that point. I mean, I know it's the peak of the track, but oh, that was where I felt like everything started to sit and seem complete because I really like the groove of this is very interesting and it makes it super unique. But I think yeah, Natty.
I think that the rhythmic complexity is there. One of the things I think that stands out right now, at least, is a lot of your sounds are very hollow sounding, and no, aside from when you start adding that, my brain thought Kylie Minogue and remembered the wrong site title. It was La 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 by Kylie Minogue that has that really
Yeah.
yeah, and the bass there is a very very similar sound. Until that came in and started sort of dominating the track, I didn't really feel like there was a central element that was anchoring everything together. But I mean, you have all these sort of really bubbly arps and stuff going on, but they're all really panned and they're all really thin. It's like you've gone through your song and just cut everything out of everything without much thought beyond if it's, if I'm cutting all my bass out, for example, then it must make it clean. I mean, it's a sort of something that people do when they're developing tracks early on is they get really aggressive with it, I think. And don't do that. Let some of the lower frequencies still into the song. It's okay. Especially if you do things like subtle sidechain, either compression or an EQ, for example, you can make the specific frequencies buffer out of the way. They can get out of the way of each other just fine in that respect. And because your sounds themselves are all very plucky, you don't have to worry so much about tails and things bleeding into each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of just a clean the way that it is.
So I think it's just a case of beefing up all your sounds a little bit and allowing one in each section of your track, allowing one of those sounds to take the center stage of, as it were. So then we're focused on that, and everything else is just focused on providing that ear candy.
Ear candy.
Ear candy. Even something like when you get to the bass processing, look at something like that, La 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 by Kylie Minogue. As far as, I'm not really sure I'm keen on the song as such. It's a bit repetitive. But, as far as production, it's one of those sort of ones that's a good reference, I think, for this sort of sound. Oh,
super good. Good call, Natty. The more that I think about it, the more it really goes with that. So,
yeah, so referencing, also another good one.
Referencing is key. I mean, you just don't know. You only have your environment. If you're lucky, maybe you have a couple pairs of monitors, but I don't even have monitors. Okay, I have these headphones and
I'm headphones only near enough, aside from whatever other speakers I can get hold of.
Yeah, so reference tracks are everything. Next up, we got Palachala, just looking for general mixing and arrangement feedback. Okay. First of all, your kick is like punching me in the chest in just the right way. So great job on that. Like very, very crisp, but also beefy kick. It's quite nice, like the whole sub, but I feel like it's missing like the low. Like, is it in D, this tune? Like, I feel like it's missing the D. Yeah, I just kind of realized what I was going to say about halfway through, and I just decided to go with it. But seriously, I feel like it's missing like a low root note bass at some point. Like that would really come through. And, you know, I know that it is a style sometimes to just have a really subby kick and not have a sub. But there's just so many cool melodic parts that I almost want to hear a little bit interacting with that. You know what I mean, Maddie?
Yeah, I get you, and I definitely feel like there is a little bit of space there to work with to really make it heavy, because that's what it wants, to be heavy.
Yeah.
There's also a couple of points I think with we got that really neat. It's like it's like an Arabic vocalization in there. And then you've got this lead sound it's kind of like it wants to be underneath, but it's actually at the same level as your vocal. And but it's also doing very little with the layering between the two. Like that sound needs to be more variable, I think. I mean, it might even be worth potentially creating a sidechain vocoder between the two, so that your lead then mimics your vocal. You pull it down a little bit so that it's not competing so much, and then if you're going to stack them together, you need them to glue together literally. If you use a vocoder and as the vocal itself as your source for your synth, then it'll start mimicking those vocalizations, and it'll create this little sandwich.
Little sandwich. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I would also just personally like do a few more automations, do a few more little like even I know in this style it would be more like slowly evolving filters or something, you know, and not necessarily micro edits, but things that just slowly move the tension along just a little bit more. Like I know there's some, but maybe just little tiny effects, weird little panny sounds, little corners, little sonic corners that you can tuck yourself into. That's just something that I feel. You know.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement there.
Yep, but yeah, good track. I mean, good idea. Good. Can't stop seeing Natty's microphone as a disguised SpongeBob.
I'm not sure I see this.
From it kind of looks like if he was standing backwards and he was facing, yeah.
I guess.
But I have to say right now, your t-shirt, your microphone, and the painting behind you are like perfectly coordinated. So amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing job. So actually, it turns out we had a couple of like weird duplicate submissions. So I think we have time now to play one last track and close up. We're going to play Chris the Wizard's second submission. And Chris, thank you so much for your donation today. If you've been enjoying Feedback and Friends, we do this every week. We also have concerts coming up, live XR visuals, electronic music. Those are going to be streamed and in real life in Spain. So please check out Kids Will. We did your track already, but you can always roll back. You don't have to, you'll be able to watch the video of the day. But we do this every week. We have different guests. If you enjoy our free education, feel free to throw us a tip so we can keep doing this. And thank you so much to everybody who gave such great feedback tonight. And thank you again to Chris. I'm looking forward to what else. He just says, oh, this is the same one. Chris, did you submit twice? You want to give us? All right. This is the first person to post a track can get it reviewed right now, because we are preparing for one, and it actually turns out that we don't have that one.
Wow.
That never.
The clock is ticking. Should we could get the countdown one that's like do 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 do.
Oh damn! I mean, they might have all left. Well, I guess we could just close off, but like feels like we always have like a willful closing. I think, you know what? I think I saw a frisky track in there. If nobody has anything else, there was a few confusion and they had to go, but where did it go? Or I could play that. Let's see. Always frisky. All right. I think we're going to do that. We're going to close because they went to bed, but if I tell them it's the last track, Five Jesus. Okay. I'm going to play Friskies and then we'll see if we can do one more. But yes, Aaron Luke, don't give up with Frisky. We love you. You're such a good supporter of the channel. You don't need to be here because you're always here. So any sort of preamble? Living in Orlando, inspired constantly by its vibes, with Disney being my literal backyard. I can see the fireworks every night. Oh, that's cool. Connected with some Imagineers who often commission private work for potential future work. So here's a Disney Cell song for no reason. Feedback focus is the lyrics and melody. I know that Frisky is always interesting, so I'm looking forward to this. I'm sure it's going to be
I'm also a sucker for show tunes.
Interesting.
It started with a dream. I saw it clearly when my eyes were closed. A little voice in me said, no, you don't. You can't quit now. It's been a war inside, a battle with myself and I. It would be easier if I could cry, but no, I must keep going. I could see a light at the end of this dark, long tunnel. I could see the finish line. It's getting closer with every step. Don't you dare give up, even if your stories seem too tall. Don't you dare give up, even when the words they say make you feel so small. There's 100 reasons you could use right now to quit your dreams and quit yourself, but don't you dare give up, even if you fall.
Oh, that was adorable. I love that, actually. That was like feel good vibes, but it was so like genuine. I really enjoyed that. All right, Nathaniel says we can stick on. So we got the Five Jesus. I'm gonna just open up this Dropbox, and I have no idea what's going on. What kind of feedback?
Well, for me, I think that while the lyrics themselves do work, they were, I mean, especially if you're going for that Disney vibe, I think you should take a look at being a little bit less on the nose. Like, I mean, your lyrics are very literal. And, I mean, one of the things you should start looking at is how you might incorporate simile and metaphor into your lyricism. So that then you're not just, I mean, especially, this is an I Want song. That's what it is. It's, you know, don't give up now. Everything's potential. I'm going to go for my dreams, or you're going to go for your dreams, since you're singing like some sort of overarching narrator. In which case, you got to establish, especially with a Disney song, one of the things they're very good at is establishing not just what the person wants, but where they're at physically and what sort of time they're occupying and how long, you know, like there's everything is going around. It's the first song that Barrett says, the first song you hear in a musical. So you got to think about your place setting and see if there's any mirrors, I suppose, in that setting that you can use to say, this is why you shouldn't give up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like maybe making it a little more flowery and would help. But I was just, I know you wanted to know about the lyrics, but for me, I was just like, I really enjoyed the melody because it had this Disney thing, but it wasn't just predictable and cheesy. Like it had.
Oh yeah, your melodies are good. The harmonies were also lovely. I keep up the work with developing that, because that's a really hard thing to do, actually.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're gonna do real fast. We're gonna do Five Jesus and then Prod by Salsa, and then we're gonna close. All right, so we just got this now hot off the press called Blip Banger. Wait, Dropbox doesn't go through. This is annoying. I don't know why, but the audio doesn't port through. I don't know. So I'm gonna let Natty just say something because I have to download this. Natty?
I I guess. Everyone, come join the Discord and say
Yes, come join
hi.
the Discord. I just got to download this real quick, and now I can. I don't know why, but Dropbox does not stream through the browser. It's really weird.
Also, if you have memes, send them to our Twitter and we'll retweet them because we have a Twitter, EDMP Discord.
There it is. So I'm gonna, this is nice and minimal, so I'm gonna kind of just talk in the background because I think it's taking its time at this point. So some really cool sound design. Don't be hard on yourself. Like, I really like these little glitchy transitions. I think that vocal sample is a little bit dry. And I think that some of your bass sounds, like, they're not gelling together. Like, I can hear that they're separate, and I don't want to hear that they're separate. I want to hear like one fluid moving bass. So there's a few ways you can do this. One of them is really like play with envelope followers and start tweaking them. Just something to shape the basses a little bit so that they kind of slide into and out of each other and they're not just such flat sounds. Also, like automation just more within the patches themselves, maybe using some glide that's always triggered so that every note is kind of glide-ish. So I think that if you just kind of glue it together like that, it'll all come together. Like that thing that you're missing in the mix is just cohesion right now between like some of your low end sounds. I really like the vibe, the atmosphere, and I think it's a good idea. Nuts.
I mean, in addition, I think that you should maybe look at alternating how your snare is processed. It's a very clicky snare, and you've got all this delay and ambience going on. So maybe just occasionally throw a dub delay in there and have it so the snare just echoes out into the space and goes all warped and because I think that would add just a little, you've got room there, I think, to play with that. You said your intro was dumb. I don't think it was dumb. I think it did a really good job of just sort of setting the atmosphere and space of this track before you got into the, okay, now we're getting serious and heavy. I mean, tweak the balance of your sounds so that everything fits together better, but don't change your intro. Just polish the sounds for it. It works really well.
Yeah, some more high end, I think, would have just like some crispy top end, like some rides, some sparkly things, just something to polish the frequency balance of the intro would be good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Good job.
All right, closing out the night. Sosa says this might hurt your ears.
Oh, I guess I better turn you down a little bit then.
I'll control. I'll keep that volume where it is, and we'll work on it. It's called Ghost. All right, so it's saying it repeats, but it's definitely full on. It woke me up. It was a good way to yes, close out the night. This has got this like epic crunch to it. Maybe a bit too much crunch. My sub pack is kind of like confused. I don't know how else to say it, but it's like flopping around all over the place. So I think you need to control yourself a little bit more in the low end there, and like really tighten things up. Maybe do some like when you get this heavy. I don't know if how you sidechain or whatever, but have you tried doing it with gates? Because sometimes like even that little click that it gives when you sidechain with a gate and you don't really massage the attack too much, even that actually contributes to like the edginess of a sound like this, but also just makes it a lot cleaner while still sounding dirty. That's another thing I have to say. You got to get clean before you can get dirty. You have to clean out everything you don't want before you can put that crunch back on.
I mean, for me, I think while you were saying your sub pack was confused, my headphones weren't actually getting that much of the sub with this one, which was interesting. I feel like it was so dominated by the high end, all your sweepy sounds, that it was actually losing the clarity in all your bass. So pull those back a bit. I mean, there are times where you can emphasize those sounds by just cutting everything else out. You know, you can have change the balance of your track through emission as well. It doesn't just have to be how you stack it. So that's something to have a look at tweaking for your builds perhaps. So if you want to have that sweepiness, you know, you just make sure everything else is gone when you do so. Because yeah, I feel like you got those really interesting wubby sounds that are quite typical of the genre, but you're not really giving them a chance to shine because they're just immediately subsumed by the high end.
Subsumed is a great word, Nathaniel.
So pull the high end down. Maybe look at even cutting some of the mono out of your high end a little bit to give your bass more space, and then just see how hard. Like when Chris said it was heavy, I feel like it could be heavier even. Like, you know, you can bring everything else up, give it that oomph that Isha is looking for in there, and you know, so then you get a crunchy bite to it, and I think that it could get more aggressive as a result, and therefore hit way harder.
Very nice as usual. Well, thank you. That was quite the closer. I'm now going to have to like calm down a little bit and drink some tea to go to bed. It is 12:30 a.m. over here in Valencia, Spain. I believe you're an hour behind me, Natty. 11:30. So
yes.
we do this every week, every Wednesday. You are free to submit to the same link beforehand, so you can always get ahead of next week's queue. And the video should be up if anyone wants to rewatch it on our Twitch, and also gets archived on my YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Nathaniel, my soldier. I can't even talk anymore. This is like the point where we start like slurring our words and like passing out. And I remember the last time Evelyn stayed, she was like, my ears are just cotton. I'm going, I need to go to bed. And Natty, you're a trooper. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned if you're not subscribed. Come on. We have so much stuff coming up. I'm going to make a big announcement of a few different shows and some physical shows. We're going to be doing them in Europe, in the UK, and in the US so far. So we have real life things coming up. We have streams. Love you all. Any last words, Natty?
Thank you, everyone, for all your awesome submissions. I mean, every week I'm always, I wouldn't say surprised by the variety, but I'm always happy to hear all the variety of things you're working on. So thank you for that.
And thank you for everybody who donated. This is all absolutely free. We love doing this, so help us keep it free. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much, and take care.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.